So we will call the meeting to order at 5:31, maybe? Yeah, 5:31. And this is the regular Selectboard board meeting for August 11th, 2021. Do we have any adjustments to the agenda?
No, we do not.
Okay. Next would be approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of July 28th and August 2nd?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of July 28th and August 2nd.
And I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of July 28th and August 2nd as presented. If there's no further discussion, then all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next would be warrants to the treasurer.
Make a motion to approve and execute the warrants to the treasurer as presented upon completion of review.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded to approve and execute the warrants as presented upon completion of review. So Karen, if you could review, we have one payroll and one accounts payable.
Sure. So payroll warrant dated August 13, 2021, in the amount of $26,106.70.
And that is unusually large for us. I'm assuming
Lifeguards.
lifeguards, okay.
Yeah.
And how?
And
the-
overtime.
I was just gonna say
Overtime from the
overtime
storm.
for, yeah,
Yeah, so the
And-
highway department had some considerable.
but no other help other than our already existing. We don't pay contractors.
No,
on
that's
AP.
accounts payable.
Well, it is
Yeah.
AP, it's not.
Did we pick up anybody else that's on here that's working on the road crew that wasn't working on the road crew? Did we have anybody new?
No,
Okay.
we do not.
Okay. Any other questions about that? You good?
I'm good, David. Yep.
All right. So accounts payable?
Accounts payable dated July 31st through August 13, 2021, in the amount of $84,251.22. So nothing like unusual. The only one payable that we do have is Jonah Nigro. So that was a tax sale from last year. And he had bid on it, but the owner redeemed. So this is his money plus 1% interest. So the money that he put on the bid,
So it was essentially in escrow for all
Yes.
practical purposes?
yes,
Or in fact, in escrow?
yes.
Okay. And I don't see on here, and maybe I'm just missing it, it doesn't look like we have, on this accounts payable, it doesn't look like we have paid any of the contractors for storm work yet, is that correct?
That is correct, Josh. I did speak to one, but considering all the work that they had done, and we had a warrant tonight,
Gonna
they
take a little
didn't,
while.
it's gonna take a little while.
Yeah, understandable.
So probably, most likely the next warrant, we'll see at least one or two.
Okay.
Who's,
Town of Dummerston?
That's for the taxes on the gravel pit,
Oh,
so we split the cost.
and I don't recognize Symposium. Who's Symposium Technologies?
Is that the library, Melissa?
Is it?
I
Okay.
don't know.
That's
That's you?
No, that's Tom.
Okay.
And what is it?
Just our, electronic records management system.
Thank you, Tom.
Blue Book. USA Blue Book.
That is wastewater, so it's supplies.
All right. Anything else? David? you
I'm good, thank you.
All right, it's been moved and seconded, and now we have completed review of the warrants as presented. All those in favor of approving, by saying aye?
aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, good, thank you.
Thank you.
So next on the list is public comment on items not on the agenda. I see I have Ann here. Hi, Ann, welcome.
I am vaccinated, I just like to wear this too. Yeah, 2 days ago,
Ann Carey,
right, and Carrie.
Conservation Commission,
Well, actually, I'm here as just
as a private
myself.
citizen. Okay,
Yeah, because
good.
the Conservation Commission hasn't discussed this yet. But 2 days ago, listening to the radio, WBUR, a gentleman, William Muhr, Moonaw, who's a professor emeritus of international environmental policy at Tufts University, was speaking about climate change. And I was really amazed by it and really sort of depressed by it. But he was indicating that of the CO2 produced globally in a year, 56% is absorbed and taken care of by our forests, wetland, native grasslands, and the ocean. And I was very amazed that in terms of forests, of the 3 tropical forests that are really big, the Amazon, the one in the Congo, and the Asian tropical forest is pretty much turning from being a carbon sequester to an emitter because of the palm plantations, using palm oil. The Amazon, we know what's happening there. It's going the same direction. The only one that's really not degraded is the one in the Congo. And then he began to speak about temperate forests. And in that regard, he spoke of Canada, the whole long stretch of forest across Canada, which is on your lower map there and also on the upper map. And you can see that it's pretty light yellow on the upper map and light green on the lower map. And he said that the Canadian managed forests, what managed means it's managed for timber production with some kind of long-range plan. Those Canadian managed forests have gone from being carbon sinks to being carbon emitters, which shocked me beyond belief. And also, what was really important to me looking at these little maps that I gave you, New England is really incredibly important globally. I mean, we've got some really dark green in there. Also Ontario and other parts of Canada, down into the Appalachian Mountains. But I think a lot of the time, I just think, well, I just live here. My neighbors do what they do. I just never realized we were that important. And our forests and wetlands were that important in terms of carbon sequestration. Because if those natural systems no longer are consuming 56% of the carbon we emit, then it's going to be horrendous. So I just wanted to bring this up because I hope you're bringing up some other planning things that are coming up. And I'm just hoping, the planning things take time. I'm just hoping that certain individual activities that the Conservation Commission or the Planning Commission or especially the Energy Committee come up with can move forward rapidly without waiting for like the whole town plan to be, approved or a brand new mitigation plan to be approved or whatever it is. I really think we need to act as expeditiously as possible. I think the Energy Committee is really on the case and backed by a whole bunch of citizens who signed on to a petition that the town can start to deal with issues. And I really just want to say, I hope all that can move forward. I just got so freaked out. And I was just amazed how important we are.
Do you know how they take the measurements between sequestering and emitting carbon? Are they just the number of trees per acre? Is there some system?
I don't know, because they didn't cover that. I'm
Yeah.
not scientific. I did read one little study that said, this was in Oregon somewhere, probably all the trees are gone now. But there were, and I don't know what the piece of land was like that they were looking at, but only 3% of the trees were 21 inches diameter at breast height.
Mhm.
And they sequestered 42% of the carbon on that site. So it's the larger trees because as the Cambrian layer grows, that Cambrian layer is in all the branches, the trunk, the roots, all of that grows every year.
So there's a formula somebody has.
Someone must
Yeah,
have
yeah,
a
yeah.
formula, yeah.
Okay.
But it's the larger trees that are sequestering the most carbon.
So as far as the Energy Committee is concerned, I believe we have a meeting next Monday. I think it's one. So any interested public citizens should certainly attend.
Could you say that again, a little?
So we're having an Energy Committee meeting on Monday. So anybody who's interested in this subject can certainly attend. We did submit the draft of the Enhanced Energy Plan to the Planning Commission. They're in the process of editing it. We had several specific goals in the original draft, which we plan to flesh out and move forward.
I was very impressed with number 6, of course.
Yeah.
The more I look at this, the more brilliant it seems.
So one of the concerns that was raised was conservation of older forests, overcutting, not to replace cutting, but to allow for landowners to keep their old growth forests intact without having to enter into a management plan. And we found that was something that would be very important. That's not something the town itself can implement. It would be something at the state level through the current use program. But that was one of our recommendations.
Yeah, I think that's excellent. It also gives more control to landowners over what happens on their land than is currently the case. It does, a lot of its impact relates to something happening at the state level.
Yeah.
But there are probably things that we can do too as a municipality.
Yeah, we can certainly look into that. And like I said, if there's any interested citizens that would like to attend or join the Energy Committee, we're still looking for members. I don't remember. I'm sorry. 6:30?
I think it's 6:30, but.
What was that?
I think it might be at 6:30,
Yeah.
but don't quote me. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay.
We've moved it around a couple times.
So I caught a little something in one of your sentences there. So is there a petition?
No.
No.
I meant way back when
Oh, okay.
last town meeting was a
Right.
non-binding resolution passed.
All right, I didn't
There
know
was
if
a
there
lot
was
of
a
signatures on
petition that's
No.
gonna become
No,
an
it's-
article for town meeting.
No,
I just
no,
kinda
we-
wanted to get a handle on that.
Yeah, no, we took the article that was passed in the town meeting, last town meeting, to heart and have been operating on that basis ever since.
Okay.
One thing that, and I would think this would be more Conservation Commission than Energy Commission, and I really don't know where it is now, but I was, as you may remember, on the Housing and Conservation Board for several years. And in larger tracts of land up north, they were looking at tax incentives for carbon sequestration. But it essentially, because of the size of the parcels, it really only included large, mostly corporate landowners. And I suggested at the time, and I don't know whether anything is gone, but whether that we might be able to do something, for example, as a town, that would be a motivator for people to become part of essentially a carbon sequestration district. And I don't know whether that's gone anywhere. I don't know where the state is on it as far as larger owners, but it might be interesting to look at, because it would be a way of motivating land use in a different way than we think of it conventionally.
Right.
And so it might be worth thinking about, but something to explore. I could make some phone calls about
Yeah,
it
that'd be good.
if that helped. But thank you. Yeah, it would be really interesting to see this map from 300 years ago and how it compares. It
Yeah,
would be,
maybe I
And
should
for
look
people-
around.
And for periods during that 300 years, how it
sort of 50
Exactly.
years at a time.
Right.
Yeah, and
Right.
I'm sure it's there.
Absolutely, yep.
Okay, thank you. And any other public comment on items not on the agenda?
This is Janice Baldwin calling in.
Hi, Janice.
I just wanted some clarification on the status of the COVID infection at the town hall and with the road crew. I've heard several things, and I just would love to know exactly what the status is.
I don't know, Janice, how this works, but we would have to be sensitive to HIPAA rules.
Right.
This is probably a privacy issue that
Tom's on the back.
Tom is here, and Tom, I don't know whether you want to comment at all or just say we can't comment.
We can't comment because it is a HIPAA violation.
You can't tell me whether or not there are existing cases in the community regarding the town hall and the road crew?
Yes.
I'm not asking names, I'm just,
Tom is saying, you're saying, yes, we can.
It just keep it very, very general.
I mean, was
Yes.
this a rumor or is this valid?
No,
information?
In the community?
there
Yes.
have been a handful of
With
cases.
the town and the road crew.
Yes.
Yes.
Can
That's
you
really,
divulge the extent of this outbreak, whatever?
sorry, can we
No.
what?
Can you divulge the extent? Is it one person or 3 people or 10 people? You know, the rumors get circulated around. I'm just trying to get correct information to squelch.
It's just as simple as town employees have been affected.
What Tom is saying, and I think this is as far as we can answer, Janice, is just that town employees have been affected. And, you know, we really, those are personal, private issues, and no COVID information, as you know, if you followed it at the state level, information about individuals is just not released. So that would
Okay.
not be within legal purview for us. So, but
Okay, that's the answer. Thank you.
okay, thank you. Mr. Fairman.
Mr. Chairman, with regard to what the last speaker said, I can refer everyone to the Vermont Department of Health website, where they do provide statistics by town.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Did you hear that, Janice?
I did, yeah. I know that.
And the thing is, at that level, it is simply an aggregate statistic, so HIPAA's not involved.
Right.
Simply, they're saying, you know, officially, we got the following information.
Yeah.
And below that level, as you correctly state, we really can't go.
Yeah. No, and the one other thing I would add, Janice, and I think you probably know this, but that all the appropriate steps have been taken to limit exposure of anybody beyond what occurred.
Thank you for that confirmation. Obviously, with all of the road crew that are out and about working to help repair our roads and get us back. I live off of River Road, so I'm really aware of this. I was just curious on what the status was. So thank you for clarifying.
Yep. Thank you. Mr. Fairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was, I simply said that ad hoc because I had some information to offer.
Uh-huh.
Two public comments. First, thank goodness we bought a gravel pit. And, you know, congratulations to everyone who had the foresight, our town manager, our select board, and voters at town meeting who said, let's do this. Because now we are in such a good, during the storm and recovering from the storm, we were in such a good position. Just go pick up some gravel.
Right.
Thank you.
Simple as that. Okay, and then next, I thank our Town of Putney Select Board for affirming during your July 28th, 2021 regular public meeting, citizens' right to speak to you under the Vermont Open Meeting Law, which does not mandate extemporaneous speech by prohibiting reading aloud from a prepared text, which also infringes upon citizens' First and 14th Amendment rights regarding all levels of government. Another citizen present objected to my briefly reading 525 words, citing Robert's Rules of Order. First, have the Town of Putney Select Board actually adopted any rules of order in addition to mandatory Vermont Open Meeting Law? Second, even if you have adopted rules of order, the Vermont Open Meeting Law and the United States Constitution preempt any incompatible rules of order, which is Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised, 12th edition, 2020, section 1, paragraph 5. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I think that we just as a means of keeping reasonable order, we generally abide by Robert's rules, but I think that we also generally abide by common sense as to what makes sense, and obviously would defer to constitutional and or Vermont statute as far as what is legal and required. And I think that, it's not always easy teasing out the right answer in any given situation, but, I think that
I would offer this, Robert's Rules itself anticipates that an organization that wishes to use Robert's Rules via a formal motion adopts Robert's Rules.
So,
And-
so we did adopt a rules of procedure in March of March 20, the date.
Yeah.
And I believe it is published on our website under policies and procedures. And it's a template from VLCT meant to not supersede Robert's Rules of Order, but to clarify our procedure, which we are allowed to do under state statute. If we do not adopt a specific procedure, then we do default to Robert's Rules of Order,
Correct.
which is why we went that step.
Right.
So it's there, it's publicly available, and I invite
Indeed.
everybody to read it.
Indeed, perhaps one should clarify that the Vermont open meeting law trumps any rules, any select board rules of procedure, and Robert's Rules of Order actually defers to any other law, because Robert's Rules of Order are not allowed to violate any law.
Right.
That's section 1, paragraph 5. So right at the very beginning of Robert's Rules, first page.
Thank you. All right. Any other
comment?
public comment on
Right.
items not on the agenda? Any other public comment from folks in the virtual world? I don't see anything.
Jeff, I have just a question, I'm sorry, I came a little bit late. Okay, I have one question, and I'm
Name?
sorry, I missed a little bit at the beginning, I started on my phone and I didn't go down.
Sorry, this is Catherine Carmen speaking.
Okay, thanks. So I don't know if you already, this is on the agenda or not, but, federal funds that are coming to each county, each town, is that on the agenda? I mean, I think there's desire to have input on how towns, conversation in town about how to apply that. So
Are you speaking about ARPA?
I'm not sure.
American Rescue?
Yeah, it's a
Plan.
sum that's going to every town.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna touch base on that in my
Okay,
town manager's report.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so if there are no other public comment on items not on the agenda, then it would be over to you, Karen, for town manager's
I'll
report.
quickly fly through this. So the first installment of property taxes are due on August 20th, 2021, which is next week. Well, I'll be halfway through the month already. I don't know where it went.
More than-
So I just want to remind people, I also want to mention, we're getting a lot of phone calls for people who have not seen their homestead exemption.
Right.
And they're asking, what should I do? Should I not pay the first installment? My recommendation is to make your first installment. Once your homestead exemption comes through from the state, because we get downloads every Monday, we will apply that homestead exemption to your bill. You'll get a revised bill, which will lower your second and third payment.
Right.
So the first one might be a little tough, but
And the only thing I would say in addition to that is if you know some of your history, you could at a minimum make a partial payment on your first. If you felt you knew
right.
a likely HSA payment that you would be getting, that you pay what you usually have paid in the past so that you don't get behind on,
Right, or a little bit higher.
or a little bit higher,
Yeah,
exactly.
you know,
And that will, anything
Right.
will be either credited or discounted
correct,
from your second and third payments as well. But that would be the way to stay ahead of it.
right.
And or, as Karen says, make the full payment, but if you can't, make at least a partial.
Correct.
Josh,
Yes,
Josh. Sorry, Lori Cartwright had her hand up and I didn't see it.
oh. Lori,
Lori? Oh,
The really hard helping in. Folks, I don't know if they can come up.
sorry, you're really broken up.
Alyssa,
Your phone's breaking up, Lori.
can she put it in the chat?
It's still not, your service isn't good. Put it in the chat and I'll read it.
Thank you, Alyssa.
Yeah, we really couldn't hear anything you said, Lori, sorry. Okay, so first installment of property taxes.
Right. So municipal planning grant, so I put this on here for the planning commission, so that is coming up in September. So the grant will open up, planning commission is planning on revising the town plan, because it's due in 2023. So it's looking like that this grant may, be used for that. And so September 1st, the online application's open, but September 30th is the deadline for the resolution from this board for me to get it to Wyndham Regional Commission. So in the next, either next
Couple
meeting
meetings.
or
Yeah.
the first one in September, we'll nail this down, okay?
Yeah.
And the grant is up to $22,000.
So it's not insignificant.
And the town plan is, there's significant, involvement in revising that. So, and we need to be projecting, things in the future, like energy, climate change, storms, everything. So, if anybody wants to help out the planning commission, we have a couple advisory committees that are under the purview of the planning commission. One's Economic Development Advisory Committee, and then the other one was Agricultural. And we really need people to help with this town plan because, half dozen people, it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. Yeah.
So I'm putting my plea out there again.
And
So,
I
go ahead.
I guess I would say, and I don't want to say that if it's incorrect, but if you have a certain expertise that would be helpful to us, even if you don't want to sign up to be on the committee per se,
Right,
please, offer your expertise and hopefully we can take advantage of it.
right. Just contact town manager's office and I can get a contact for you to either directly speak to that person on the planning commission, or you can email stuff to me and I can get it to, Pip. But we definitely need some feedback and some input.
Josh, could you list out some of those areas of expertise that you think might be helpful?
Well, agricultural is certainly one that, or you can go around. Agricultural, we've talked about having an agricultural committee to look at agricultural business in the area, and that committee has not been formed, I think,
No.
largely because of lack of interest.
Right.
But, people who are in agricultural business sector and want something.
Farmers, gardeners, the farmer's market.
Yeah.
Anyone that supports like the farmer's market, this is a good place for them to be on this committee.
At the beginning of COVID, we came up with a resource list, and part of that was
Right.
the
Right.
the names and
Yep.
numbers of people who were involved in that, and that might be a place, a
Right.
resource to start with. Maybe we could.
Yep.
Those people are very busy though too, and
Right.
getting any of those people to spare a
Right
moment
now,
at this time
Especially
of
at this
year.
time of year.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like
Yep.
almost impossible. Yeah,
Right.
So.
I wonder if putting out like a Google survey on the next newsletter of like, these are the kind of people we're interested in, and like someone could plug their name and email in, would be an interesting thing to, like, just something to, the description of what kind of people,
Electronic
Right.
outreach.
yeah.
I know, we have a Facebook page, Town of Putney. I use iPutney, also our website. The last couple weeks, I'm like going crazy trying to post everything. But,
Swift.
so it is out there,
Swift.
but
Yeah, but I think I agree with what this individual just
Yeah.
noted, that you gotta make it really accessible, like it comes to you and you can sign up, as opposed to you having to go look for it on iPutney or something, because I'm not sure.
Sometimes what works best too is for people to actually reach out, to go
Right.
talk to somebody. I had this
Right.
conversation with two people that are growers in this town this afternoon, about getting their input on something other than this, but the same idea.
Mhm.
The stuff we were talking about at the beginning of COVID, if we didn't know where it was going
Right.
to go, and how are we going to support people in this community in all the ways, and that was one of the ways that we were concerned about. Would there be
Yeah.
food? And how would we get it? And how would we store it? And, could we, supply some kind of communal bank food here?
yeah,
and all
food
of
to
that.
table, the whole
And
9 yards.
I just
yeah.
wrote those two people's names down, and I'll reach out to them again tomorrow.
Food security, yeah,
And
I've been like,
Encourage them with all
Yeah.
of my charm to call you.
And then the person to direct them to would be you, Karen? You're the
Yes,
point person.
yeah. We thought about survey too, but we don't have like an email chain. And we're starting to create that because we know it's important, but we can only do so much.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the
Yeah.
problem, our staff resources
Right.
in town hall are
Limited.
limited, and so,
The main point is making it easily accessible, so if we have your
Right.
name to
Yep.
direct people to, that's
Mhm.
easy.
Yep,
Or also Google, some sort of Google Doc that could be shared, and then it gets, not by you shared necessarily, but
Right.
someone posts it on Facebook for
Right.
you, or it gets shared around, or.
I had to deal with Google Docs today and it was
Yes, you
everything
did.
to do. I'm gonna call you for the surveys,
job.
Swift. Out of my comfort zone.
Happy to help.
once you get used to it,
I
it's
like
pretty
Google
useful,
Docs.
I do too.
Okay, Josh,
Yeah.
if you can do it, I can do it.
Oh.
No question about that. I can't do it well,
I know,
I
I
can just
just
do it.
I'm not volunteering to help, sorry.
All right,
Just follow up on your question. I mean, there's all sorts of different aspects of the town plan. So honestly,
Right.
almost any realm of expertise that's related to the town and living here
Right.
Even editing
is a
skills.
necessary part.
That'd
Yeah.
be awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
Right, so I think this piece of it being broad, like editing, agriculture, legal,
Right.
like having a
Yeah.
really broad list and like anything that you could look at and be like, oh yeah, I wrote a grant back in college, I took that to like, or whatever, really something broad.
the other thing too, the planning commission meets every month, and now that the town plan is gonna start, evolving here, jump in on one of their meetings and, ask questions.
My comment was not so much for me, but you're saying you're wanting to really generate some support and
Right.
interest. In order to do that, I think it helps for people to have something concrete to attach to. Oh yeah, I can help with that, rather than thinking, what do they want? Maybe editing, maybe I'll get to them, and they never do. So I think that idea of having, generating, we could really use 1 through 10, whatever it is. I think people are more, broadly inclined to it's just human.
You're on the planning commission, so you can bring that back.
I will
Thank you.
I'll endeavor to bring that back. Thank you.
Do we have volunteers
Mary?
here right now?
Mary Quinn has her hand up.
Mary, you have a question, or Robin, maybe, one of you?
Actually, it's Robin who has a question.
No,
Or a comment.
I have a comment, just on the subject of getting people input into agriculture in particular on the planning commission. Both Pip Bannister and Andrew Morrison, who were on the planning commission as I am, have been trying to reach out or develop steps to reach out to people. Pip has reached out to a few people directly. Andrew has started on trying to come up with a way to do a computerized search to come up with people who might not be obvious as having expertise in agriculture in the area, people who are, not the obvious people like the Goddards and the Harlows but the database that he's compiled, which was, he used, I thought, some fairly sophisticated techniques, kind of came up with the same old familiar names. So just to underline what other people have already said, if you can think of people who you think would have useful input on agriculture in Putney, that is one of the things that we really want to address in rewriting the town plan. And so people who are doing, I believe, it was mentioned, people who say are doing semi-agricultural activity or semi-commercial activity, I should say. If names occur to you, maybe send an email to Karen and she can send it on to us. And we're looking to broaden basically the database of people we can talk to get as wide a representation of views as we can before we, really dive into the issue. So right now we're looking for names. So anybody who's got some suggestions, please send them to Karen if that's okay with you, Karen, and you can just forward them on to us.
Sure.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And
I just wanted to say that the Conservation Commission will help with the natural resources section as usual.
thank you.
Right.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I would offer the observation, we've been talking about people who have expertise in agriculture. The people who have actual expertise in agriculture are actual farmers, of which there are several in Putney.
Yes.
Some quite large farms, in fact. Now, yes, farming is not a job you take if you want any time off.
Right.
But that said, there could be a way of soliciting their input, which could be as simple as sending them a survey that perhaps asks a few questions, but basically asks one question: what do you need in the town plan to be a successful farmer?
Something that was occurring along the same lines that was occurring to me, that actually what might be helpful is somebody who, and this sort of fits that question of what skill set, if you're somebody who could go and spend a couple hours going to various different farmers and talking to them where they are, because even a survey, great idea as it is, something comes in the mail and you're headed out to do your harvesting, there's the pile of mail and there's the harvesting. That pile of mail is going to sit there. Not that I'm disagreeing with you, Mr. Fairman, but even somebody who could go and do that sort of boots on the ground kind of stuff would be helpful. And it doesn't have to be an agriculture person. It has to be somebody who's willing to go and take notes and ask a question or come up with a survey or however it might work.
It'd be a great thing. I'd love to do it if I had a minute, but I don't.
Well said, Mr. Chairman. And as far as I know, we always have substantive and civil conversations. So I will simply add to that there is a disadvantage to sending out an intermediary, which is then it becomes secondhand communication versus hearing directly from the farmer.
Well, yes, and if you compiled a survey and then had somebody go out and fill out the survey, if you go and stand with David, not that he's a farmer, but if you go and stand with, if you were surveying the mechanics, you go and stand while he's tightening bolts and say, X, Y, or Z, he can answer it without having to take time out.
Lower taxes and some help.
Exactly. So, but yes, but good input. Thank you. All right. So, municipal planning grant. Well, and getting that grant would help us figure out how to use some of the resources that we have to advance the town plan. So that would be good.
Yes.
Solar project assignment and assumption.
So I received on August 6th an email from NextSun, Dave Remington. So it appears that they are selling. So Green Lantern Capital is selling the Westminster 2 solar project.
So just to give a little bit of history here, this is the power purchase agreement that
Right.
we entered into, and I'm guessing because they're selling, and I know that these things tend to be on 7-year cycles, that we've probably been in it for 7 years. I don't know that, that's just a guess on my part. Might be a little longer, I think it
10.
might be, it's
Yeah,
possible.
I think it was 2012. Actually, I have
Was
it
it?
right here.
Might be.
Hold on a minute.
But
Keep talking.
it tends to be after a 7-year cycle that these things get renegotiated, and that's maybe have nothing to do with this. But what this would be probably that the tax benefits for the original holder, which would be Green Lantern, would be either expiring or more valuable to transfer. So this gives us an option to renegotiate, is that?
I've sent the agreement over to Larry, legal counsel, to vet. So this transaction is supposed to happen at the end of the month. And so we signed with Green Lantern November 2013. But until Larry comes back and I can get my head around this,
Okay.
I'll bring it back to the board. But I just wanted to get it on your radar.
You might want to get it to to these folks before Monday. I mean, it's something, I don't.
Yeah, I'm not sure we'd have time to.
No, I know, but
you
it should be on your radar,
Yeah.
and somebody like Morgan might be able to.
Yeah.
So Morgan,
Up to Morgan.
yeah, Morgan's already gone over this
He has,
contract
okay.
when
Sounds good.
Leo was here.
Yeah.
So I sat down with Morgan. We made sure we were getting our 10%
Yeah.
credits, and we are, and we
Yeah.
have been. So that, we have to look at that. So Morgan is very versed
Very knows
in
it.
this. Yeah, he can probably recall it just from his head.
Yeah.
But I will get you a copy.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great.
Josh, just to, from my understanding, who are these folks?
Energy Committee
Sorry.
is meeting on
Yeah.
Monday.
Yeah.
Also needs members.
Yes. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
What's that?
This is one big info.
It is.
Yeah.
Thanks for jumping in.
Yeah, and thanks for being a plant for us. And another member of the audience has a question.
Right.
Sorry, kidding.
So I wanted to mention too, ARPA, so the American Rescue Plan. So that money is coming down to all municipalities, and I did get an email. I didn't have time to check to see if it's already in our account. So we will receive half now, and then the other half
And how
next
much
year.
is it?
From memory, I thought it was like $257,113.12. But it may change, so,
Right.
because it was kind of like, are we gonna get it, are we not? That's the whole thing. So,
And it's completely at our discretion how we
No,
spend?
no, it's
Right,
not.
That's what I
Remember?
was gonna say.
We signed.
No.
We need more grants like this.
no, I had told you, in a few meetings back, hang on a minute.
There are certain categories.
So it's broadband, it's
Right.
economic development, affordable housing, education, and there's one more, I just can't. But we can only spend it on in infrastructure.
Right.
So, and I don't know if that includes roads, but it does include wastewater. So-
Can we just satisfy one of those categories and spend it all on that, or do we have to split it in a certain percentage, or is
Well,
that completely up to us?
I think it's up to the community to.
As long as it's spent in those.
Any
Right.
one of those
Right,
categories?
and
Yeah,
the
okay.
thing too is that, we're gonna get it, so we should spend it, otherwise it's gonna go back and it'll go to some other town.
And
So
time limit on that?
it's 2 years,
Okay.
so,
So to your point,
yeah.
I was only made aware of it when I heard something on the radio. I think it was Howard Weistisman, who had said something about wanting to get people's voices in this, and I can't remember, something was being set up. Whether it was like a BPR call-in, or I'm not sure, but that's what I kind of wanted to get a little more sense of as a town, what is the plan for generating that input? I don't know what that infomercial
Right.
was sponsored by, but it seems like they're trying to get each town to.
Right. And I think it's important that we get input from the community.
Is there something?
And it may be a survey. So I haven't done anything because we weren't even sure the money was gonna come down. It just came down this week.
Yeah, there was a moment in time when
Right.
the federal government
Right.
decided that they were going to give it to the counties.
Yes,
And in Vermont, the counties aren't really a legal
Organized that
entity.
way.
right,
So like all of the money was gonna go to the Wyndham County courthouse, and the towns were gonna get virtually nothing. But they've
right.
since then have
Yep.
fixed that, so the towns are gonna get their full share.
So the other thing too, I wanna say, Catherine, is that we are gonna start looking at the budget for 2023 and trying to have a sense what to do with this extra money is gonna be important for planning our budget and seeing what the community wants to do for the future. And, this money too, we should be thinking about long-term.
Yeah, it raised an interesting question for me because it would be all too tempting right now, every town, to balance budget with it. And it was intended for something else, but given the timing, and I can understand the tension between those two demands. The one is a demand, the other is an opportunity.
Right.
So I think that's an important distinction to make as people are, as we're asking people to have input and just kind of be thinking kind of creatively and with foresight about, what we might want to have. We think about, infrastructure is pretty broad.
Mm-hmm.
But, you can think about, you can fix the roads that we have or pay, that I'm sure we're way under budget right now for roads, given that we're having, but, recently. But at the same time, there may be some thinking further ahead to more of these events, like what, do you make do you put it in an escrow account to have growth,
Well, except as Karen just said, we have a 2-year window, so
to actually spend it, you can't.
that's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
And-
Anyway, I don't know how it runs, but I have it in my mind, my first thought was about making this distinction about how to really think creatively about making the best possible use of those funds. And they're not huge, but I mean, if there's some way to have it serve the larger public in the most continuous way. I don't know how, what that would
We'll
look like.
figure it out. I just haven't,
input.
I've been kind of like,
Yeah,
we'll get
I'm just
input
saying,
and,
the input, I'd be
right.
really interested to hear what people have to say, what their thoughts are. There'll be a lot of good ideas out there.
Mr. Fairman and then Nan.
Mr. Chairman, I didn't want to interrupt the discussion, but I do need to ask under which agenda item of the agenda of this meeting are we now discussing?
Oh, I added that, Howard, I'm sorry.
Nothing was added to the agenda. And
It's my little note, and I think as town manager, because we're not taking any action.
Actually, I'm pretty sure that you needed to have it on the agenda. We can take that under advisement. But I'm simply raising the point as the public record that I believe a discussion has occurred I know that a discussion has occurred that was not on the agenda.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that therefore we are outside the Vermont open meeting law. So my suggestion would be, let's take it under advisement.
Yeah.
And if in fact we were outside the Vermont open meeting law, to put the item on the agenda next week, not to repeat the discussion, but in case any member of the public who was unaware, that's the point.
Yeah.
Members of the public were not aware that this would be discussed, therefore it was not properly warned.
Yeah, no, I think you are right. I think that we probably should have added as an adjustment to the agenda, even though that wouldn't be sufficiently warning it. But I also think Karen's intent was to just sort of touch on it so
And not have a large
so that it was on the radar,
discussion,
but
yeah,
you're right, we
so-
should refrain from further discussion about it.
Right.
That having been said, and if you want to comment.
A point of clarification on what's been said before. Does the project have to be completed by the end of 2 years?
I don't think we know.
I don't know that yet,
Yeah.
Ann, but we're not gonna talk about this anymore. And I'll put it on the agenda in 2 weeks.
Actually, Catherine asked to talk about it.
That's exactly what I was
Right, that
thinking
is
too.
true. It was brought up in public comment, so.
So,
Oh, that is true.
That's true.
Yes, public, so it was public comment on items not on the agenda. Mr. Fairman,
Or except we had.
we had moved past that.
We moved
Yes.
past that. Just to clarify, since it's very brief, Vermont open meeting law, any addition to or deletion from the agenda shall be made as the first act of business at the meeting. Any other adjustment to the agenda may be made at any time during the meeting.
so
Yeah.
I'll take accountability for adding that in the wrong way.
Well,
It sounds like we can actually add it anyway.
Yes.
So-
Yes.
I'm not faulting anyone. Just
Yeah.
I'm
No.
simply pointing out that we got lost.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think what we probably should have done to keep it more appropriate was cover it in the public comment, since that's when it first came up. But Karen knew she was gonna talk about it, so yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
But now we're
Right.
found, even though we got
I am.
lost.
So it was a meandering.
No, those who wander are not lost.
Okay,
As
so,
long as you enjoy the water.
All right, so moving on.
All who wander.
Some of them get lost.
VLCT Human Resources, I spoke with Jill Muhr, and they will be assisting me with some
Good.
personnel policies, job descriptions, performance reviews. So she has a lot of information right now from our office, and they will support me in any way I need for a human resource, support.
Contact, is that ongoing or?
It will be ongoing, yes, yep. So I think that's important. That is another area that, in a small rural office,
Right.
you don't always have a human resource person, but
But you have human resource needs.
yes,
Yeah.
Makes sense.
yes.
Where are they from?
It's Vermont leads cities and towns, so they're like our passive
I
insurance.
didn't hear.
Yeah,
Do they also do, in their HR-ness, do they also do diversity work?
yes.
well,
Yeah, they just created a whole committee. at
Within
the-
that realm of supporting you, or?
Not so much
The-
that.
I'm guessing, and I don't know enough, Eitan would definitely know more, but we've talked about, the VLCT has
Yeah, I'm
created.
just curious if this specifically, might you get more support and specifically with diversity?
If I had
Advice.
questions, I could go to them, yes, yes. So, and I think it'll tie in with everything with equity and inclusion too at some point, which I think is important.
And I think it's a young program for VLCT.
Right.
So how it would, that question of sort of the overlap with HR, I'm not sure, and I'm not sure they would know yet.
Right.
But I'm guessing if you had equity and inclusion questions related to HR, they would be able to find the person to talk to, kind of thing.
I would assume that's the intent of the committee.
At least part of it,
Yeah.
certainly, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay, good, thank you. Well, that's helpful.
I have no
Um,
other items.
Okay, select.
They're
Warned
not
or
on this
unwarned?
Correct.
So select board items, and I want to make sure, Richard is going to be he's under the Vermont Financial Storm Relief, is that right?
Yeah,
I
storm
know you have
damage
specific
report.
questions, and I
Yes.
just want to make sure we.
Yeah, he is
Or-
in the
or-
next.
Things you want to bring up. So, we will move on to item 7 for us, which is select board items for discussion and action. And the first of those is storm damage report as of 8/2/21. And Tom, you want to give us an update?
Yep, the highway department and the contractors that Brian brought into the mix, they've been working like crazy. They've done a lot of good work. At this point, every road in town that was damaged is passable. River Road on the south end remains closed, and that's gonna be closed indefinitely. Sand Hill Road is closed. The thought is perhaps next week That'll be taken care of and reopened, but there's not a guarantee to that. I know today and yesterday, a lot of emphasis was placed on going back to some places, doing a little bit of finer tuning to some significant ditch washes and so on and so forth that could present a hazard to traffic. So that's being done. That'll continue through the end of this week, and then reset next week and keep going. So again, the folks have done a phenomenal job.
Yes.
Yeah, it's been good.
Definitely our gratitude to everybody
Absolutely.
who's been involved. I mean, I know obviously all the highway and many of the fire department folks played a huge role, but also the local contractors have really gone above and beyond and putting themselves and making themselves available for a whole bunch of different things. And in fact, in at least one case, making their gravel pit accessible to us for additional material,
Right.
et cetera. So that's
Yeah.
Derek's who did that, and that's much appreciated. But
Right.
Bill Fitzpatrick, I know various Harlow family members, Derek's, Derek Excavating, and I think there have been some
they've all
others.
stepped up and gone well beyond what
Yes, and we very much appreciate it.
we ever thought would happen, so.
All the little guys in between.
Exactly, yeah, oh yeah.
So I also want to thank the town of Brattleboro, the highway department,
Yes.
for sending up like 5 trucks and drivers to help us. I think it was last Thursday. But yeah, they sent help too. So thank you, Brattleboro.
And I know there's been coordination also with our flanking with both Dummerston and Westminster as well, just to have, I think they've all had enough work to do so that they've
Right.
mostly worked independently, but I'm sure that's taken a lot of
Yeah.
thought to make that happen.
Yeah,
So,
and I've been talking to the road foreman in Brookline, so it's only one person over there. And, so Putney Mountain Road to the summit is open on the Putney side, but on the Brookline side, it's still closed.
Yeah.
So, so I've been coordinating with him, he'll let us know when that's gonna open. But other than that, there was a lot of communication, it was all open and it worked out well.
And I also, to Tom's point, the fact that virtually all our roads, I know Richard, we both live on Brook Road, and Brook Road, I was assuming it was gonna be months before Brook Road opened again, so it's pretty remarkable. It's open, yeah.
Yesterday.
It's a little limited in its width in a couple places, but it's passable. It's pretty remarkable. So thank you, everybody,
May I
for
ask
that.
a question about that? One, I did what everyone has said here, but it's, we forget how fortunate we are, just in general as an area that has the capacity, we have an infrastructure in much of the country, we have an infrastructure that we can recover so easily from these disasters, and it's a little bit of an illusion, because we can't always do that.
Correct.
And it's amazing how fast it gets done. So there's that, and it made me think that when we had this road damage, I know that there's also, there's been the bill that went through maybe a couple of years ago that was requiring as a water from the Department of Natural Resources.
Agency of Natural Resources, yeah.
That was at a certain point that each town had to have road design to a certain
Standards, yeah.
Stormwater management.
Exactly,
yeah. This kind of situation just puts everyone like a step back, or if it is potentially somewhat of an opportunity to, when those places that were on that list, maybe probably Brook Road was one of those that was,
Well, it's
near the
not.
top of the list. But if there's a capacity during these times, to be able to start moving in that direction, or is it just really repair as best you can?
You want me to speak to that?
It's a little bit of both, but yeah,
Right.
go ahead, Tom.
A lot of work has already been done to those standards in town, and in some cases actually exceeded those standards. And that's all on Brian.
Right.
He had, even as the work was being done to develop the standards, he was already up to speed and beyond that. So he had a plan, and he stuck to it. So all the work that has been done in accordance with those standards have proved to hold up and do what it was supposed to do. So ironically, we had a talk with this. We've had several talks over the last week with reps from the state, from VTrans, and from FEMA, and they're all appreciative to hear that what the standards are requiring works. It works well, and they want to keep hearing that because that will weed through to FEMA, and show them that what they're paying for through all these storms, wherever it is, as things get brought back up to standards with federal money, the payoff down the road is going to be pretty significant.
So that may help to increase some of the support, the federal support to keep doing that.
Yeah.
And one additional thing related to that is that Brian certainly, I mean, you know, in order to get the roads passable in the time frame that they have, there was the necessity to do a certain amount of temporary work, which will be redone.
Right.
But Brian and I have certainly, and Karen, we've all had this conversation that anything that was done as a temporary move should be upgraded to
Right.
that higher standard. And, you know, sort of a shuffling of culverts, it's like, okay, well, you know, everything that was a 24-inch culvert, which should have been a 30, if we could do that while we're here, we're trying to do that as much as possible, but it's limited by person power and time. But definitely paying attention to that. And like Tom said, it's very noticeable. I mean, some of the projects that we have done relatively recently, if they hadn't been done, the damage would have been
question. We'd have lost
a lot
through this
more.
storm. We'd have lost a lot of Holland Hill.
Yeah,
We would have lost a lot of Houghton
Houghton
Road.
Brook, yeah.
Yeah.
Hickory
Mountain,
Hickory
would have
Ridge,
been even
yeah,
worse.
yeah.
Hickory Ridge, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and also kudos to Brian for seeking out and getting grant money specifically related to those projects that you're talking about.
Grants and aid.
Grants and aid,
It's
which
about
have been
yeah.
a steady income for
Every
us.
year.
Of not a
Every year.
huge amount, but enough to
23,000.
make those
Well, hopefully this is a
steps.
good boon for further future grants, you know.
Yeah.
The data is there.
So Tom, I have a question for you, Tom. I should have asked Brian when I talked to him yesterday, but the grants and aid and the highest priority areas that needed to be upgraded, and were those judgments made right? Were the areas that hadn't been upgraded yet but were highest priority, the places that actually washed out the worst?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I was just curious about that.
Yeah,
Right.
that's an interesting question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just hadn't.
Josh.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Josh.
Janice.
Janice Baldwin.
Okay, I know Mr. Fairman had his hand up too, so we'll take Janice and then go to Mr. Fairman. Janice, go ahead.
Thank you. I'll be quick. So I live on Priest Drive, which empties down into River Road, and one of the culverts that has been temporarily repaired, and thank you very much. But I have two questions. One is when you say, with regard to the other end of the road, you know, kind of indefinite, what does that mean? Because it is pretty stressful for me with a low hybrid car to go over East Putney Falls Road. And secondly, I know that Priest Drive was scheduled to be redone this year, repaved, and with culverts and all that, drains and stuff. I'm wondering if this work has set that schedule back, and will that in fact not happen this summer?
It is not going to happen this summer.
No.
It that Brian has already made that determination, and what that does, Janice, because of that, is that it ups its priority for next summer. So it will definitely get next summer. That's the plan.
I thought it was spring.
Spring,
Yeah.
well, yes,
Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
next work season, exactly.
In this fiscal year.
As far as River Road is concerned, it's a tough call. I mean, that's a big enough situation. The state, we're gonna have to wait on engineering, and then we're
Yeah.
gonna have to have, probably what's called a box culvert, which are the big concrete culverts that you see installed in many of these upgrades. It's more than likely gonna need a box culvert, I would assume. But it's one of those things where we're really depending on state engineering to
Right.
determine for us what's gonna have to go in there. And then there's manufacturing of those culverts involved if it's not something that's readily available, et cetera. So I know Brian is hoping that it might happen before the end of the work season this year, but
Yeah.
I don't think we're 100% sure that's gonna
No.
be possible. So, but that was one spot, as you may have seen, that the governor and the emergency management director visited and viewed, and it's specifically on a list for the state of something they need to address for us because it's beyond sort of the realm of just deciding what to do and going ahead with it. So it's going to be a
Thanks.
little while.
That's pretty much what I intuited. So I guess the area on the side of my Priest Drive where I live is eroding. I mean, it's not impassable or anything like that. I don't want to imply that. But I'm assuming if it does get so bad that I am nervous about getting out of my driveway, I guess I should just notify the town manager about that and see if there's a short fix that they could make.
I
Yes.
would be surprised if Brian is not already aware of it, but I think that I know that the town manager just heard your comment, and I see you're writing something down. So I think you can assume that she's been notified, but, Janice, I think as you would assume, Brian has to prioritize based on essentially population density and condition of
Absolutely.
roads, so.
This is my first winter without a Subaru, and I have a
Oh, no.
hybrid. So
Oh, no.
bad choice, I know. But what can you do?
All right.
I'm saving a lot of money on gas. I'll just stay home.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Smart.
You'll save money in more ways than one then.
Yeah.
Kind of intelligence.
All right,
Sure.
so, yes, Mr. Fairman, sorry, go
I
ahead.
didn't mean to interrupt you, sir.
That's okay, no.
All right. Walking Sand Hill Road, I have noticed this. Sand Hill Road closed for the most part. If you turn off Westminster Road onto Sand Hill Road eastbound, you reach the bottom of the hill before you find out that the road is closed, if you're not from around here.
Yes,
Now, there's people who live there,
Yeah.
and they have a sign in their driveway which says, "No turning, you're ruining my driveway." I'm quoting it exactly. Problem is, people who don't know the area and turn in, they're already there, their only choice is to turn in that driveway. So I'm taking the liberty of suggesting if you got one available, that a road closed sign be placed at the top of the hill, so that people will see it before they head down there.
We do
Yes.
not. We have a half dozen on order. We have 150 cones on order because all our cones are out as well. As we open roads, Mr. Fairman, if a road closed sign comes up, that's like the first place.
there is in fact one on Brooklyn
Road.
that says road closed ahead
Yeah.
that we could move over there, so.
Yeah,
That was
Was already
that was
purchased.
taken to another place.
yeah.
No,
Oh, today.
it's still there.
Oh,
Oh,
I thought it was-
today?
No, I thought it was there today.
It was still, it's still there last time I
Okay,
drove
they
by.
haven't done it yet. That's going to a different spot. Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I've heard that from other folks and I agree. I
Yeah.
think we were maxed out, so.
We are.
They actually did it.
But we're working on it.
Actually pulled out of it. Oh, yeah, bummer.
Yeah.
I actually used my own cones to put up. because
Yes,
there were no
that's
cones.
true.
Thank you. Well done, Richard.
You steal my cones? No.
So now you know where they went, right?
Yeah, right.
But Sand Hill, that should be a priority just because it's such a
You
heavily
can get them
traveled
anywhere.
road.
I know,
I had 'em
and
for-
Tom and I have spoken about it,
Yeah.
and,
Remote.
Yeah.
so as soon as we can get one, we'll
It'll go
have
out
it
there.
there. We
Sounds
were
good.
kind of hoping that Sand Hill would have been like open this week, but that's not gonna happen.
simply thought since I would be here, I'd bring it to your attention because I know the residents are not present this evening.
And I'm sure they're frustrated, but.
They can
yeah.
call me.
But now you've been
And I
informed.
can explain to them, you know. But we're doing the best we can.
Somebody seems to have made a sign, a hand-drawn sign for the bottom of Putney Mountain Road that suggests you not take it. It says it's dangerous.
I've seen it, I don't remember what it says.
Right, but
Sign
that is
No,
possible.
there's other signs around
Yes,
town.
yeah, up to the top.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah.
It deterred me.
There you go.
I peered at it.
Okay,
Get another hand raised.
Mary and Robin, Mary or Robin, or both.
It's Mary. The place where, Howard was just talking about, it's dangerous to back up there if you can't go in these people's driveway, because if you're on the other side of the hill, you can't see if someone's coming or not. And that's the only way that you can get out of there without going in the person's driveway. Is it possible that we can just get a stake and put a cardboard sign that says road closed on it? Do we have to wait for an official road closed sign to be put there?
We'll take it under advisement. We'll see what we can do in the next 24 hours kind of thing. So, Ann, go ahead.
Very briefly, the box culverts are obviously did their job. And I was interested in knowing if we could also look at the road crews done a lot of work on hydrologically connected sections of road.
Yeah.
That's for keeping the water clear in the streams.
Yes.
But I also wonder if that had any positive effect.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
part of, that's the grants and aid
Right.
work that we were talking
The
about.
box culverts and the hydrological.
Yes, and that, a lot of that, and actually you'll see if you've been around, well, I'm sure getting towards your place, you've seen, they're putting huge amounts of what's called riprap, which is the large aggregate stone.
Right.
And that is when they do those projects that are aids and grant and aids, aids and grant, whatever it's called.
Grants and aid, yeah.
That's largely what they're doing, is scooping out and putting in the large aggregate so you don't get the washout. So as far as Catherine, I think it was Catherine's question as to, are we staying ahead of this? By using that specific material in all of the locations that they have in fact advanced that agenda of preventing washdown, because that material really binds well and holds well and is unlikely to wash again. Not that it can't, but it's much less likely to.
Yeah.
So that's been a big part of it. But so again, I don't want to. Tom, you good on updating your report? Richard, Vermont Financial Storm Relief, I believe, is a program that
It's the Watershed Protection Program.
Oh,
Oh, it
emergency
is?
watershed
Okay,
Yes.
sorry.
program.
Yes.
So I don't know whether you have any comments on that, Tom, or whether this is Karen or.
Well, Tom has a lot of information on that program, but just to give you a heads up, so FEMA and the state of Vermont Emergency Management. So Tom and I have been in a couple meetings with them, and I did a webinar today with FEMA. So nothing's been declared at this point, Tom, is that correct?
No,
Yeah.
the governor hasn't made a request yet.
So there's no state of emergency yet, there's no national. So they're still getting numbers, for damage in all the surrounding towns. And the figure that we just got this week is 1 million.
Which is upgraded. The original was
Yes.
8.2 or something, so it's
Yeah.
upgraded.
It'll upgrade again because they don't have everything yet.
Right.
Exactly.
They will have, if I don't get it to them tomorrow, it'll be till next week.
Right. So there's a lot of things going on right now because there's a lot of unknowns. And this watershed program is another one, watershed protection program. So anyone with property damage.
So, and this is specific to private property owners, I believe, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes. And commercial, okay, so.
Right,
and
exactly.
businesses.
Waterside. or,
Yeah.
you know,
I mean,
waters.
So we were instructed to have property owners contact 211. And then, once they did that, they were advised, and then we, Tom and I, Tom mostly, got information on the program, so we could understand what the next steps are. So if you want to take that away, Tom, and.
Yeah, essentially, it's a grant program which also requires not only a financial or any kind match by the town, by the municipality, but also the municipality is the sponsor for the grant program. And the municipality within the scope of responsibilities is responsible for the entire, for whatever project is approved from start to finish. This program has been used once in town several years ago. Brian and I don't remember, honestly. We were both involved in it, but we honestly don't remember that there was a number of requirements in place then that there are now for the sponsor, for the town. But the project, the grant was used at a site on the north end of River Road because the embankment and the stream embankment was eroding so bad and it was falling, and there was actually a structure that was in danger of coming down over the bank.
A stone.
Yeah, heavy.
Yeah, I remember. Peter Welch ended up working on
Yeah,
that.
so that's right. Yep. So that was this program that funded that.
Oh.
So I'll turn it over to Richard for a moment, just to give everybody bring everybody up to speed on what the damage was. 'Cause I don't want to speak for you on that. But.
Right, so you have pictures in your packets?
Yeah, I've
So,
personally seen
You've been
Richard's
there,
property.
yes.
Yeah, so Tom and Josh have been there, and so I was instructed to call. I actually found out called 211, and that's the Vermont Emergency Management Program, and they're the ones that talk to this Ian Kilburn. He's one of the managers of one of the programs there. And he sent me a letter, and he basically said, I need to contact the town because this is not, there's no award that's given to an individual. It actually has to be sponsored by a town. There's two different kinds of program. I don't know what the difference is, but one of them is going to pay 75% of the cost, and another one can possibly pay 90% of the cost. And I'm not sure what that is. But on my property, I live on a tributary that feeds right into Sackett's Brook. That is at the very edge of my property, and mine comes south and joins that. It, like all these other little streams, this was a couple miles up, there is no stream. It just all of a sudden developed. This is the highest water that we've ever had in 30-something years that we've been, 35 years we've been here. Higher than Sandy and higher than Irene and higher than spring melts with rain, all that stuff. And so it went higher. Fortunately, our garage, our property, the house, all that stuff up on the main, I live on the one side of the road, there's Tavern Hill Road, and then I have property down below, it goes down to the brook. I have 600 feet of property that runs along the brook. In the middle of that, there's probably 100, 150 feet that got carved away. In one large section, it cut away at least 15 to 18 feet out from my property, and now is left with a 6 to 8 foot straight down drop into boulders. So I think it's a safety hazard for me and my family and the grandkids and stuff when they come. It used to slope down a little bit more cautiously until this thing all happened.
Slope down to Sackett's Brook, is that what you're saying?
What's that?
Is it a slope down to Sackett's Brook?
The property?
Guard down the boulders, is that going down to Socketsville?
Well, it just stayed there now. There's a whole
Here,
chunk
yeah.
of, there's a whole chunk of land that was 15 to 18 feet deep along the edge,
Gotcha.
and it was probably 60 feet and had trees and everything on it, and that's
Right.
totally gone.
Right.
That's
Gotcha.
gone. It's actually, I think, I walked down and I think it's jammed up when you go to the culvert.
Just above the culvert.
Up the hill.
So,
I think my whole property is there because what used to be a flat brook now is
As an island.
15 feet
Yeah.
high. It changed the contour. I walked down,
Yeah.
there's a mass of trees that are all intertwined and all that stuff. And I found 2 lawn chairs that I had
We wish
washed
you'd come
away.
down and remove all that.
That's gonna take a few wheelbarrow loads, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and I have a, so I think, so that's about it, I think that was, it's damaged. I mean, it's also carved 3 feet away, I had bushes along the side, that was all carved. And so some areas are just I lost 3 feet and it only drops down a couple of feet. And I don't even know what needs to be done. I mean, the riprap is one thing. I talked to somebody who does these things and they said the best way to do it is to put big boulders first and then the riprap on top of it. So I don't even know how to, I think these people will come and send somebody to look at it and develop a management plan.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm looking for. I know you also advised me, Karen, to check with my my insurances. I'm on a floodplain and I have flood insurance. They would not pay anything unless it breached your walls of your home. And then a homeowner's insurance would not cover anything
Right.
either. So
Right.
so much for all this, so much for paying for flood insurance.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
For the last 15 years. So looking for something, I think something needs to be done for safety hazard. Now, Hayden Lake lives across the way. There's also, and there's a big hill, there's also a landslide that has come down that hill into the brook, and there's another one waiting to happen. And there's 3 or 4 of his trees came down and caved into my property. So that's another issue that he probably has to deal with himself. But if that all comes down, it's going to block the brook completely and cause more problems down the river.
Right.
That's what some of these other management plans may need to do. I mean, they also talk about cleaning out riverbeds. So I'm asking for town sponsorship.
Tom.
In talking with the head of the program, several times over the last several days, and the biggest reason was neither Brian and I could truly wrap our head around what this little pamphlet says as to what responsibilities are and what this grant will actually cover. Again, because we just didn't remember all the ins and outs being so complicated last time. But one thing that did come of it, we got a lot of questions answered. And one of those questions was, or had to do with, would this grant actually be applicable to Richard's project and his damage? And the unfortunate answer to that is it's not. The reason for that is because with the work to be done would not be directly protecting a building, so a lot like your insurance,
Right.
Nor would it be protecting public infrastructure, like a road or another case might be water mains, sewer mains, and things like that.
You might be able to argue against that, given the
It
size
talks
of the
about
chunk
safety.
that ended up down by the culvert. I'm not disagreeing with you, Tom. I'm
Right.
just,
Now,
you know,
the option still does exist.
Yeah.
If for the town to potentially be a sponsor and specifically make a request of the USDA to come down and do a damage and a damage assessment and they'll determine
Right.
what they may or may not cover.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first step is, which I gave a copy of, that they send this, it's basically a request letter, and it's not for me to do, it's, you know, they say insert the town letterhead. It doesn't even, I don't even think it has it doesn't even have my name is not even on this, going to be on this, I don't think, there's no place for it.
At this point, what would likely go on, we're not to the letter point yet.
Yeah.
I think it would be another call to the head of the program to say, we want somebody to come down and take a look at this.
The letter has to be in within 30 days of the instance.
He was telling me 60 days.
Well, here it says.
Between the time of the incident and the time that the municipality requests assistance.
It says the applicant must submit a request within 30 days of the disaster event, and some type of damage must be denied by the NRC prior to receiving the FEMA funding.
We're still fine. We've got plenty of time.
Okay.
Even worst case scenario, if the 60 days that he told me isn't accurate, we've still got plenty of time.
Okay.
Right, because our next meeting is the 25th.
So
we could get a letter that night, signed, approved.
Okay.
So we could just simply make a phone call, have them come down, meet with us, we go take a look at things with them. They get their questions answered, so on and so forth, and then they make a determination. If their upfront determination is, yeah, we could potentially see this moving forward, then that's when the letter comes into play.
Right.
They'll do a design, they'll do the full damage assessment, and then they'll do a design and cost analysis of what needs to be done. They would provide that to the town as the sponsor. From that point, the sponsor is responsible for everything. So the town would be responsible for all the permitting that would be involved. We'd be responsible for developing bid specs, putting everything out to bid, awarding the bid. We'd be responsible for scheduling the contractors. We'd be responsible for paying them.
And then we get reimbursement.
Yes.
And would we get administrative reimbursement as
That
well?
administrative would be, remember there's a 25% in kind, or cash match, or material match, or whatever. So that would be part of that. I don't know how we would make up the remainder of that 25% match. And then above and beyond that, once the contractors are paid, once everything is done, it's proven that everything was done in accordance with the design and specifications. At that point, once the grant is completed, the town of Putney is then responsible for all maintenance of whatever was done, for an operational functionality of whatever was done for 20 years.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So we also have to do, like legal, a deed, right? Because we would obtain that land from the property owner, is that correct?
I wouldn't think there would be any purchase of land, no.
Really?
It says providing land rights to do the repair.
Right,
And
Like a
securing
temporary
necessary permits.
right. So we'd have to have an attorney involved with that.
So I'm certainly willing to bear some of the cost of this as well. We'll have to get an estimate first.
Right.
I think the first step, I reeled off all the responsibilities.
See whether it applies.
Just so it's up front.
Yeah.
I think the next logical step is, I'll give the USDA a call if Karen's good with that. I can do that tomorrow. We'll schedule time for reps to come down, take a look, and see where things are at.
The other thing, it prompts me, and I don't know whether others have spoken with you, but I'm guessing Richard's not alone. So just to our listening viewers, if you have property damage, there is a program by which there can be some restitution for that.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds remarkably cumbersome.
They don't make it easy.
Exactly, but if it's significant enough and it's important enough, contact Tom, because I also don't know whether there's any strength in numbers for us if,
No,
to make
it doesn't.
okay.
It
It's
doesn't-
all
it
on an
doesn't work that
individual
way.
basis.
It doesn't work that way. And again, things are pretty clear cut. I explained in great detail, what the circumstances were, the physical circumstances, and he said that simply is not eligible. But we can make a phone call and have them, request them to come down, if they will, or they may
say no.
They may say, you already explained it to us.
Yeah.
Unless something has changed, explain it to me again, and so we'll see, I'll find out tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I would say is it's a little bit of a stretch to make it an argument, but I do think that as Richard's property continues to erode, and you've seen it, so you know, a larger chunk of that heading towards the culvert really could cause a problem for us.
At some
So,
point, and I don't know who can forecast this, whether it's 5 storms from now or 10 storms from now. If it isn't addressed somehow, it could potentially swing right around and then begin to affect the road.
and be a bigger problem.
Right.
Yeah, no.
But
So
I don't know if they'll see it that way and say, oh yeah, we'll prevent something that we can't even forecast will happen.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
right, I don't know.
So everybody okay with Tom making a
Absolutely, yeah,
call?
definitely
See
first
where-
step.
See where we go from there.
And there must be a lot of situations like this out there. There
Sure.
must be a ton.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
And Tom, this is the only one in Putney so far.
That we know of, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, now,
I think a
to
lot
be
of
clear,
people
has there
have called.
been property damage? Yes.
Absolutely.
But a lot of it has to do with driveways, lawns, things like that. And that's simply and strictly the property owner's responsibility.
Right. And
So there is no help for that.
And I would guess, unfortunately for you, Richard, since you're in a floodplain, your insurance may cover less things that somebody who's not in a floodplain might actually cover, their insurance might cover. So, you know, for example, a washed out culvert, I wouldn't be surprised if many people's homeowners would cover that.
Right.
So that's worth exploring also for anybody who's wondering, but obviously, unfortunately, doesn't apply to you. But Mr. Fairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, connecting a couple of dots here, I'm going to take the liberty of offering a suggestion. It's been, the gentleman's property has been referred to, and I've seen the photos, and clearly it's grievous damage. And the town roads have been referred to, and I believe the gentleman referred to his neighbor as well. The more people and organizations that are involved in this request, the more compelling it will be.
I would tend to agree. I mean, Tom, that's what I was asking about, whether there's strength in numbers, and Tom is saying maybe not. But Hayden, yeah, I mean, it might be worth talking to Hayden about that, because I think you're right. I mean, you know, his damage might almost be sort of more visibly.
And there are other options for that as well, for a scenario like that, for that brook. And that's already, that brook and the erosion that's been going on has been on the radar for.
Well, my pieces of my property have slid.
Yeah, and that's all on the radar.
Yeah.
And there are other funding opportunities and options for that. And Brian's got those, but, so and the unfortunate reality is, over time, you've looked at it and said, it's been looked at and said, okay, yeah, it's a little bit worse, it's not causing a problem yet.
Right.
And now, strictly because of the frequency and the intensity of storms now, now it's becoming, it's certainly, you can see in the not too distant future where all of a sudden that brook is gonna change course pretty significantly, and it's gonna cause some problems. So now we can start to pull those funding options back in and see where we can end up.
Sounds good.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So can I add one comment?
Yes.
So FEMA has a national flood insurance program called Community Rating System. And it was brought to my attention in 2019 from a resident on Hickory Ridge Road.
Mhm.
And I pulled it out and started looking at this, and this might be something in the future that might help you.
Mhm.
It's probably not right now because we don't have a program in place.
Right.
But it's a program that'll guide municipalities to prevent property damage and reduce the cost of flood insurance to residents like you, Richard. So I'm gonna dig deeper into this, and I just found out that Brian Banyan, the zoning administrator in Brattleboro,
Yeah.
they have this program in place.
Oh.
So I'm
Yes,
gonna
they do, yeah.
I'm gonna talk with him, and I'm surprised that it's the zoning office that is managing this.
The planning department in Brattleboro has their hands in a lot of different things. It makes a bit of sense because they already have the floodplain
Mhm.
zoning
Yeah.
districts, so they've just have their eyes on things like that.
Well, the thing too, our zoning regulations were just updated with the river corridor,
Right.
and plus we have flood hazard areas, and Richard clearly is in that,
Falls
in
within
both.
that.
He's
Yes.
in both of them.
Yes, yeah.
So, I mean, I think this might be a program that we might be able to institute. It might benefit residents along the streams. But I'll come
And-
back with more information.
And when those maps were updated last, it really changed. I mean,
Yes.
there's a large number of properties that
We were not.
previously weren't included
We were
and
not on
now
it.
are.
Right.
I refinanced my house a couple of different times over the
Yeah.
years as interest rates went down. And then the last time I did it 15 years ago, they said, wait a minute, you're in a flood.
You're in a floodplain,
Right.
yeah.
And you're in the river corridor now
In the river,
because
yeah.
of the new regulations.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it cost over 10 years, it cost 20 grand in flood insurance and didn't pay for anything.
right. It's unfortunate
Yeah.
too. It's like,
And you can see with a storm like this why they updated that and what a good thing that was that they
Yeah.
did.
yeah. So,
All right. Anything else on storm damage? You're good, Tom? Good, thank you.
Thank you.
So next up is equity and inclusion charges. And
thank you, Tom.
thanks, Tom.
All right,
Thanks, Tommy.
absolutely.
I did not get till this until late, but the equity and inclusion charges that we have seen before have now been vetted by both legal counsel, well, informally vetted by legal counsel at the VLCT, and then more formally vetted basically by, as due to recommendation from VLCT that we have our own counsel vetted. And the recommendations were really very simple, largely wordsmithing, et cetera. I feel confident that these charges are ready to be approved by us. And I reconciled the recommendations of our counsel based on recommendations from VLCT just to tweak a few words. And it really doesn't change the nature of the charges as we have been looking at them for a few months now. And it just adds in fact, almost everything that was recommended that we add are already things that apply to all our committees anyway. So it's not additional, and it's not anything we would do differently for this committee than we would for any other committee. It's just stating them clearly, and I think that as, you know, just out of good practice going forward, we would want to include these statements. For example, the final, I don't know whether I have one in front of me, Karen.
You have the final one. It
I
has
do.
the little link. So
Is this the final one?
there's your,
Yes.
That's
that's the
as it
final
was.
right there.
Yeah.
Here, you can have it.
So, you know, at the end, it says members may be removed at any time and for any reason or no reason at all by a majority vote of the total membership of the select board. That's true for every committee that exists. So we're not changing anything for this committee, and we shouldn't be. It should be treated as the other committees are, and it's the committee and its members are subject to all applicable public meeting laws, including Vermont's open meeting law and the Public Records Act, et cetera. So, the only somewhat substantive changes, I would say, were questions about appointments. And that it was the recommendation of council that we did not require an interview in open session.
Right.
Because if there are reasons that, because that's not required of any of our
Right.
other committees. And there might be reasons we might want to have a discussion with somebody not in open session, so we don't want to tie our hands in order to not be able to do that.
I agree with that.
For their
Applicable to
benefit
this,
as well.
exactly,
Right.
exactly. And then also clarification that it would be, and this is also true for all of our other committees, that members shall be appointed annually for a one-year term beginning and ending on or around town meeting day, which is what we do. Every year we do sort of an update of all the appointed committees, and we essentially, with some exceptions, we approve a slate of approvals for all the various different committee members that come up, so.
And all appointments happen at the same time, regardless of when they're appointed. So if they're appointed in July, it still gets reappointed next March.
And I clarified that in here,
Great.
and that would be true, that has historically been true for our other committees too.
Right.
It came up in this, it came
With
up
this committee.
specifically to this because Swift and Laura were both appointed for part
In
terms.
October, right.
And then those were, we,
It wasn't clear, I guess.
exactly, we sort of assumed that those were one-year terms, but in fact, that's not the way that any of our other committees work. So, Swift?
So I have a question. Can we take this membership piece off of this document and make it a separate thing that is approved for all committees?
I think we could. I mean, I think it is.
Because the way that just my concern with this is something that Eileen has spoken about, because the way, especially the way that this committee has had, the way this came about, especially that last sentence around like, can be excluded for any reason, like, comes off as aggressive.
Right.
So it's a piece of like, wait, let's take this off, and this is about any committee.
Yes.
This isn't about this committee.
Right.
And it doesn't come off as aggressive, it comes off as a policy, that this is our policy for membership
Yep.
on any committee.
Yep.
Yeah, that was yeah.
Yeah. And that maybe that comes off and is approved
Eileen
right
had talked
now.
about that before.
But there is something in here that this is a 1 year thing, and that there might be different terms for different, this is 1 year,
Right.
and that there are, and is that all committees, or is it always 1 year? Because I know that there are other committees that are 2 or 3 years or something. I mean, that's-
Advisory committees are 1 year.
But I thought all committees are advisory.
No, because like
Conservation
conservation
Commission.
isn't,
Planning commission.
And those are all one-year appointments. I mean, we annually reappoint the members of the committee. We
So could
check.
this be all committees, I guess is my.
That seems like a good idea.
Yeah,
Well-
so just as a ad hoc thing, so I've, because I'm assuming we'd like to get this approved tonight.
I'd love to, yeah.
So I don't wanna make any changes.
not on an easy
But I agree with you, I think there should be a policy for all of our committees, and I think that's something that we could work on separately. If it's okay with everybody now, I recommend leaving it on here
Me
for
too.
now, just so that we can get this through. We can amend this later,
Great.
and then we can work on a policy for committees in Putney.
The other piece I want to say there is, the thing that came up in our last meeting, was this concern about people that are, I'm going to use the word infiltrating, which seems a little intense, but people that are coming onto committees that are not in alignment with the vision that committees are trying to move towards. There is evidence of this happening in Vermont, and I'm going to use the example of something not related to equity, but someone that is not in alignment with conservation, joining a conservation committee and saying, hey, we should increase hunting in this area because me and my hunting buddies want to open a firing range in this area. And it's like, wait a second, that's not in alignment with conservation at all.
Right.
Right.
And there is evidence of that going on specifically with equity and inclusion and diversity pieces in Vermont.
Yes.
So that was our idea and thoughts on how we might deal with that was getting a recommendation or approval from someone on the committee, or an interview in open meeting law, an open meeting, or there was other language there that was edited, that was, I'm trying to remember what we had in there.
It said must have a recommendation of the
Well, we
committee.
had talked in our last meeting about that they are in alignment with the mission, with this mission.
Yes.
They agree with it, or something like that, and that was a concern that we had had, and I don't know how we stop that, I don't know if we can,
I think
and it'll be pretty obvious.
I think what would
as soon as
happen
it
is you would
happens.
bring that to the select board.
Exactly,
The select board would say
yeah,
this person
right.
is no longer appointed.
Right,
That-
okay, it'll be a pain, but okay.
Mr. Fairman.
Mr. Chairman, it must be put on the public record that you are discussing and proposing to vote and adopt vote on and adopt this evening a document that you made public a few minutes ago, therefore making it impossible for the public to comment under the Vermont open meeting law. At an open meeting, the public shall be given a reasonable opportunity to express its opinion on matters considered by the public body during the meeting.
Isn't this
Now,
on the agenda?
I realize that you may go ahead and do it anyway, but under the Vermont open meeting law, you have made a document public in such a manner, and I realize that it is inadvertent, but
Yeah.
you have made a document public in such a manner that the public cannot comment on the document because they have not had any opportunity to read it.
So, point well taken. I think that the only, it was this membership part that complicated things a little bit as far as that's concerned, because the only other changes, this document has been, a variation of this document, as you know, has been public for quite some time. And the only changes that were made to the actual charge were a couple words here and there. And I know that wouldn't exempt it from open meeting, as you're pointing out. But it was, for example,
advocacy
instead of to decide upon recommendations, to provide recommendations,
Right.
to review extant change from extant to existing. So everything about this is virtually identical with the exception of a few words. I don't take your point lightly, though, because it does technically change what we're putting in front of people. But maybe, the most significant changes were in the membership section, and basically everything else is identical.
Yeah.
Maybe we just vote on approving the charges up through 12 and leave the
Sure.
membership section off.
Sure.
And then we look at that as applying
Which we were
to
gonna-
all the
Right.
committees.
So that's
Just
fine.
that.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Chairman, the document, the public is entitled to comment on a document as a whole, not on a document with parts omitted, because they might be the part that the public might wish to comment on. The public has the opportunity to comment on the document. And of course, when a few words have changed, we who are familiar with legal wording know that this can make all the difference. So,
Yes.
so if I may, I shall proceed with a few observations about the document as I have seen it. Now, I asked our town manager yesterday whether draft 2 is the latest version, and she said it was. And it was at that time, it appears. I'm not faulting our town manager.
No.
So therefore, I took the precaution of trying to have a look at the document, but it was made public only now. So I'm going to offer these observations. Proponents of the appointed Town of Putney Equity and Inclusion Committee's charge want special powers for members to govern our town. Deciding who may join their committee for our Town of Putney Select Board's ratification in executive session. Allowing non-resident members to vote on revising or repealing our town's ordinances, policies, and procedures governing all Town of Putney residents for our Town of Putney Select Board's ratification, deciding their very own rules of procedure, despite the entire state of Vermont being governed under the Vermont Administrative Procedure Act, the Vermont Judiciary Rules of Civil and Criminal Procedure, the Vermont Open Meeting Law, and Robert's Rules of Order. Empowering themselves to govern us under Dillon's rule, which they actually cannot do, or under your delegated select board powers, which you actually cannot do. Appropriating jurisdictions that even you lack, address economic disparities, institute training programs for everyone's attendance, review Windham County Sheriff's Office policies versus their recommendations, oversee all Putney organizations and businesses regarding their work on equity and inclusion and diversity, confront bias-motivated incidents. A local attorney on behalf of the Town of Putney Equity and Inclusion Committee has presented no legal argument for these special powers. I, on behalf of Vermont's system of government, have presented a legal argument against these special powers, creating a public record of what you knew and when you knew it. The most sacred principle of our democracy is voters or our elected representatives signifying consensus by casting their personal votes in a majority, which no one can do on their behalf without profaning the most sacred principle of our democracy. The end here is claimed to justify the means, that is, delegating your collective legal authority as an elected select board to an appointed group, creating a new and unelected legislative body, but no one and nothing can justify this profaning of the most sacred principle of our democracy. Now, I have said this with reserving my right under the Vermont Open Meeting Law to comment publicly on the document as actually presented, but that does not mean, certainly the Vermont Open Meeting Law does not mean that, okay, here's the document, glance it over, now comment on it. This is a very important document, and I am asserting my right under the Vermont Open Meeting Law to comment on it after due consideration, which means I get a chance to take the document, consider it carefully, and as I certainly have demonstrated that I always do, and then offer you my comments in a meeting under the Vermont Open Meeting Law, which therefore would not be this evening, but the next time. And it's not that I'm trying to prevent your passing, your moving and passing a resolution, but I am simply asserting my rights under the Vermont Open Meeting Law.
So I'd like to say that we can appoint a committee without these charges. And we don't necessarily need to have these charges at all in order to appoint a committee. So I'm comfortable voting for this tonight.
I think, and without having your statement to look at this and reconcile it with, I think that we are not, in fact, giving this committee any jurisdiction that we're not giving them any jurisdiction at all. We are, in fact, as with our other committees, giving them the opportunity or asking them to provide us with recommendations. I don't think that I would agree with your argument, and I don't have your words right in front of me, and I don't want to complicate it, but I don't think that we are going outside of our purview in deciding upon these charges, because I don't think that they provide any legal jurisdiction to this committee that wouldn't apply to any committee and or to us. And I could be wrong, but I think that if we don't trust our committees in town to do what we ask them to do and to provide us with useful feedback and recommendations, then there's no point in having committees. I feel like we have wordsmith this charge over and over again in order to achieve stripping them of the legal ability to go around what the intention is. And I think that I don't want to disrespect your desire to have an option to see the exact document that we're looking and comment on it. I don't think that we've changed anything that changes the nature of it. I'm at a bit of a loss as to how we proceed.
I'd like to make a comment. I'd like to say first, I agree with your concern about any committee having special powers. No committee should have special powers. I absolutely agree with that. I think that the first version of this committee, there may have been some of that happening, and I think that was really wrong. And I think that being careful about this is hugely important. I don't understand the open meeting law the way you do. Being able to look at something in its entirety, I think, is really important. I agree with that too. There's even still words in this form of it that I'm, institute, the word institute, the definition of that, maybe that should be suggest. I think it's hugely important that the work that this committee could do for us be done. And I think it be done in a way where it doesn't go around any of the rules, and that whatever it does is just advisory to this committee, and that we would have the power, because we're elected, to make any decisions about what comes out of their suggestions, out of their advice to us. So I agree with all of that. I don't know how to proceed tonight. I don't know the ramifications of not giving people the final version to be able to look at with time to think about it.
The decision could be overturned, could be, I mean,
We
it
can
would
amend
be.
it
So
later.
I don't know what to do with that
Yeah.
piece of it, but I want to say that I think it really is really important that we move in the right direction and do everything correctly this time. So I'm going to defer a little bit because I don't have as much experience at this.
I think that we can move forward with this charge as it's written, and it can become a public document. We can have public comment on it at a later date at any time, and we can amend it at will. So I still have no issue with.
I guess I'm okay with that as long as we leave the last paragraph about
Yeah,
membership in.
let's take that off because we were gonna.
I think we should leave it in, not take it off.
You wanna leave it in?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, okay. Because I think that's the place we got in trouble before.
Mr. Chairman, the remote open, it has been proposed that public comment be, the legal term is ex post facto, after the fact. The remote open meeting law does not say the public shall be given a reasonable opportunity to express its opinion on matters considered by the public body during the meeting after the fact.
Right.
It simply says, we have the right to comment on it when it is before the meeting and before it is voted upon. That is certainly what the remote open meeting law means, because otherwise public comment is irrelevant, because once again, using a legal term, it is moot. It's of no further relevance because the action has already been taken. So
Jamie has a hand up.
Sure. Jamie, go ahead. Sorry, Mr. Freeman, were you done? Hang on, Jamie, one sec. I don't want to cut you off.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So therefore, I am on the record asserting my right under the remote open meeting law to see the document and to comment on it before it has been voted upon. And of course, to see the document would not mean, here, take a look at it for 10 seconds and now what do you think?
Right.
It has to be due consideration. Now, I can certainly do due consideration very quickly, but no one can do it on the fly, because this is a very important document and we have really been concentrating on the wording. Now, Mr. Babbitt has made the observation that the committee has to be advisory, and in fact, that is true. Now, for example, the Planning Commission is different. The Planning Commission is authorized by Vermont statute. And
Yes.
Vermont statute says what they do. In fact, in effect, the Vermont statute gives them their charge. But most committees are not like that. And so therefore, they are only advisory. Now, I've not had a chance to review this, but I will recall to you that at your last regular meeting, a local attorney argued that you are the legislative body and that you can delegate your powers. Now, that in fact is not true. And who says so? The Vermont League of Cities and Towns. The municipal legislative body acts as a group by majority vote, not individually. Now, what comes from that, as you know, because you received a copy of this earlier, delegating collective legal authority of an elected select board to an appointed individual authorizes for that person legal authority constitutionally and statutorily shared by 3 or 5 elected select persons, subverting our system of government. Delegating collective legal authority of an elected select board to an appointed group creates a new and unelected legislative body, constitutionally and statutorily beyond the scope or in excess of your legal power and authority. What I've been working toward through this whole thing is to establish the limits of the powers of a committee, which are established by Dillon's rule and by what I've just presented, given that you do not actually have individual powers. Your individual power is to cast a vote. Your actual power as a select board is collective, and it applies only to you. In the same way that, take for example, Representative Moricky has a vote in the Vermont House of Representatives, but he cannot say to me, will you go up there and cast my vote for me? This is simply, this is a fundamental principle of American democracy, and I suspect of democracy anywhere in the world. So coming back to my point, whatever you do this evening, I reserve my right to see this document, not on the fly at this moment. To see this document, which was just made public, not on the fly at this moment, but to take it home with me, look it over, and I certainly can comment at your next meeting or at a special meeting. But I reserve my right to do so.
Okay. Jamie.
Jamie Comtois, Putney. I wanted to appreciate the work that's gone into the charges. I've reviewed what you submitted tonight and the changes to earlier sections. It doesn't appear that there are substantive changes in some of the earlier pieces except for the membership section. And so in my experience, the membership section could easily be amended to be addressed for all the committees at a further time. And the membership section could be taken out because as it's written now, it specifically targets a committee that is working on equity, inclusion, and diversity with language that isn't found in other committee language. So I would ask that the membership section be removed before passage this evening.
Swift and then Mark and then Swift, yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I understand, coming to these conference meetings, I feel that we always get this. I feel like I've come to a lot of these meetings and we always come to this point where it's this break. And I understand there's rules but I feel as if we keep coming back each meeting, and we keep listening and connecting, and we've had countless meetings on what we need to change. And I believe that we've done that. And here we are. And I feel that we're at the point now where I think it's time to say, hey, we want to move forward. And if there are things that need to be changed, I think we're willing to do that. I think we've shown that. We haven't gone anywhere, and we want to work with everyone here. We want to work as a community here. And the last thing that we want to do is we're not asking for special favors or anything like that. This is just something positive that we want to be able to connect with as a community. I live here, and this is something that myself, Swift, and the rest of our team members really believe in. So yes, I understand this rules, and I respect those rules. I honor those rules. But I think today all I ask is that we move forward, because I've been countless meetings, we've been here, and countless meetings online. And I just ask that today is the statement of moving forward. This is not about myself. This is not about Swift. This is not about anybody individually. This is about all of us together. So I really believe us holding this and saying, it's a statement saying moving forward. There's things we need to be taken care of. We can take care of those things. We're not asking for special treatment. But I feel that we've done everything that we've been asked to do. And we've been patient, and we've been respectful, and we continue to be patient and respectful. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Ann?
Yeah, I think if, as Jamie suggested, you took out the membership section and just made it like all the other committees, then the public has had ample time to review what is not substantially changed this evening, and you should vote on it and pass it.
I agree with you.
One sentence that concerns me as far as allowing a body to do something is charge number 4, to institute ongoing training programs. I think should probably read to recommend ongoing training programs.
I agree with that.
That's fine, that makes sense.
Yep.
Other than that, I am comfortable.
The comment I was gonna say is just the primary changes between this draft and the last draft is it's more restrictive. So it's not like we're moving towards, we haven't opened up any more doors. We have, every draft has closed more and more doors. So there isn't, this is not, we're not moving towards allowing and allowing and allowing. We're getting tighter and tighter. So this piece of, there's not any risk here in this, and it's just feeling like it's getting tighter and tighter, and people are like, let's just get out the door so we can start doing the work.
So, can I make one, I think one thing that does specifically apply to this committee would be in the membership realm, the committee shall consist of up to 9 members appointed by the select board of the town of Putney, with a minimum of 2/3 of the committee always being Putney residents. I mean, do we, I think if we end it there.
Yep.
Are the memberships shall be appointed annually, and mid-year appointees shall serve in a partial term? That's true for all committees?
We're gonna, so I think in the
That's
next
already
time-
true for all committees? That's not something that we have to
I
institute?
think it's implied, but I think what we should do is create a policy, an overarching policy for committees.
But that isn't an already existing policy.
Yes, however, it is an addition.
It's big chunks of yellow.
Exactly. It's
See, I didn't hear what she said.
Sorry.
It's big chunks of yellow,
I
which
got it.
means it's something that was added, so.
Because it's different than the original copy
Exactly.
of this, which
Yeah.
is what Howard's pointing out, which makes sense to me.
So-
Add that piece of it.
So can I make an attempt at a motion?
Yes.
Yes.
I move that we accept the charges for the Equity and Inclusion Committee, with the exception of the sentence in the membership section. Members shall be appointed annually for 1 term, beginning and ending, and onwards to the end of that. So striking that.
And then changing institute to recommend.
To recommend.
And also changing institute to recommend in charge 4.
Yep.
Moved.
Yep.
Seconded.
Yep.
All right. It has been moved and seconded. We're not there yet. It's been moved and seconded to approve the Equity and Inclusion Committee charge in its most current form, with 2 small amendments, which are in item number 4, to recommend ongoing training programs, and also to end the charge after the first sentence of the membership section, ending with always being Putney residents. And so it's been moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? Mr. Fairman?
Janice Baldwin.
Oh, okay, let Janice go. Janice, go ahead.
Hey, one question germane to the document was, and I don't have it in front of me, although I have read it. I think it's 5, 6, and 7 where it says to review, blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't say at the end of review. I'm wondering what the intent of that review is. Is it also to make recommendations?
Yes.
Because it isn't stated there.
Yeah.
Is that
Yes.
implied
That's
under
a
the first two?
That's a good point.
Stipulations, that it would be to make recommendations, because it just says review.
Mhm.
Does that need to be made explicit?
I personally don't think so, because I assume that when you're reviewing things, if you have recommendations, you then bring them forward.
Okay.
We talked about, sorry, I'm double masked, I am vaccinated, but, we talked about that in the subcommittee, that we could put to make recommendations, to make recommendations, to make recommendations in every single charge. And, there was a piece of it where there was some assumption there. We can add that in.
I don't think.
I don't think we need to.
Okay.
I think it's employed, whatever it is.
Let's hope it's not employed.
And my second point was really kind of to Howard's concern. Where was this circulated? You know, I'm pretty connected here, and I only received it last night. How was it circulated previously, this document?
May I ask a question? Because I'm not quite
Yes.
sure how they have that document.
They don't have this document.
It's a
They have
different
its
one?
predecessor.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Or whatever.
So this has been circulated through in select board packets now, at least 2 previous select board meetings, I would say. Is that correct?
It's actually
Yeah.
it's actually 3 now.
At least 2,
Yes.
yeah, 2 or 3. So,
Right.
One when you were missing.
Yes.
and select board packets are available when the agenda is posted, is that correct?
No. So the agenda gets posted to the website,
Yeah,
not the entire packet.
okay,
So the only time when a document is brought in,
Yeah.
then after the minutes go up, that document is with the minutes posted on the website.
so to Mr. Fairman's point, I think that going forward, we probably should make the packets available at the time that agendas are posted.
Okay, so this document came to me.
Yeah,
Right.
no, I know,
So on Monday, we post agendas.
right,
So if there's supporting documentation and we have it,
yes.
then we can upload it with the agenda.
Yes, no, and
Yeah.
I'm not saying specifically for this document, because I
Right.
take full credit for
Right.
not having
Right.
gotten this in
And I
until
wasn't
today.
implying anything like
Yeah.
that, but I'm trying to
No,
explain when
but-
it would.
But I think to Mr. Fairman's point, that if we are asking people, I mean, there was, the last version of this was in our packet.
Yes.
We have we have
Yes.
it in our
Yes.
packet.
Yes.
And as we talked about, there's nothing substantive that changed from one to the other. So
Right.
people would have had the opportunity to review that. So going forward, we probably ought to make the whole packet available at the time. Whatever you send us for agenda stuff, we probably ought to just post
As
on the
long as
site.
it's not confidential.
Right.
Josh.
Yes.
The draft equity and inclusion charge has been on the equity and inclusion page on the website since like day one.
For quite a
Right.
while. Yeah.
Indeed, Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman, it has.
Yes.
I would just,
I think
I
there's
would
still
just
somebody talking.
say in regard to that, I would behoove, as a citizen, it would behoove committees, if they have documentation that they want citizen members to review, not just to rely on the select, the minutes or the whatever agenda postings, to let let people know that there's a document they need to review. I mean, it behooves the committee who's preparing these documents and they want support or discussion to make that known that way, not just rely on them.
Well, that's a good point for the future. I think, to follow Brattleboro's lead again, they actually have a documented supporting documents section on their website that has
Everything.
all of it, yeah, for whatever the select board packet is.
Yeah, no, and I think in fact it sort of is an equity and inclusion question as to whether all documents are available to everybody in a timely fashion,
To
so.
be transparent, I took screenshots and texted them to someone during the meeting.
Right.
So that's how a number of people that are involved in some equity stuff have this actual thing
This
handed
actual
out here.
document, yeah.
They got it by being technically in the meeting on Zoom, got some copies of what was passed out in person here, happened to also have cell phones and technology looping. We're able to have technically what was handed out in person here, copies of it. That's technology craziness. But also, Karen and I are gonna sit down and I'm gonna train her on Google Docs.
There you go.
And it's gonna be great.
And she's gonna like it.
Okay, Mr. Fairman.
I have an extra office.
Good luck with that.
Thanks, Alyssa.
Okay, Mr. Fairman has the floor.
Mr. Chairman, in the discussion during the past few minutes has said that I am right in my contention that the documents should be made available beforehand. But at the same time, we are saying that this does not apply to the document that is currently on the floor as a motion for a vote. Now, that tells you exactly why you should not be voting on it this evening, because you agree with what I've said. And therefore, I realize you may go ahead and vote on it this evening, but I have then established the grounds under the Vermont Open Meeting Law in a recorded public meeting to challenge your vote, because you have agreed with me that the document should have been made available beforehand, but was not.
Yes.
And yes, someone, I believe it was our administrative assistant, said the document was available previously. Yes, indeed it was. And I checked yesterday with our town manager whether the watermarked draft 2 that I had was in fact the latest version. And she said, that of course was as of our correspondence, that it was.
Yes.
So therefore, if you go ahead and vote this evening on this document, agreeing that we should have had an opportunity for public comment, you are in violation of the Vermont Open Meeting Law, and this, of course, would have to be dealt with.
Well, we can vote on it again next time. I still think we should vote on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I get your point completely. I think that for me, my argument to vote on it anyway would be that we really didn't change anything substantive.
Right.
So this document, for all practical purposes, has been available for many, many weeks. We have changed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, roughly 12 to 15 words. And I understand your argument
They're all the same word.
And they basically say the same thing in different ways. And I don't think there's only one thing I think that, in fact, well, there's two that change the legal ramifications. One, in section 12, to facilitate interactions between all Putney organizations. We are not voting for that. We are voting to provide the select board with recommendations regarding the facilitation of interactions. And 2 would be in section 4, as we just discussed, instead of to institute ongoing training, would be to recommend ongoing training. So those are the substantive changes, and I fully recognize and I get your intent. I also think that we,
I think
just out of due respect, I think we need to move forward. And if you or others choose to file a complaint with the Secretary of State's office related to breach of open meeting law, you're right, you have lots of documentation and we would be at fault. That would lead us to need, yes, and I'm openly admitting that. The reality is what that would, if that were to be followed up on, the only thing that could be caused to happen as a result of that is that this decision to vote on it could be overturned. And that would be at the discretion of the Secretary of State's office.
But then we could just put it back on the agenda and re-vote on it.
Exactly.
So I say, let's vote on it tonight, put it on next week's agenda, vote on it again, so everybody can move forward.
Actually, once you voted on it, it is law in the town of Putney. Therefore, voting on it again, the only possibility would be to repeal it. Because once you have voted on it, you don't go back, one does not go back and vote on it again. And I have now, in various ways, established the grounds. I have established beyond any doubt that the Vermont open meeting law has been violated here, and the chairman of our select board has admitted that the Vermont open meeting law has been violated here. So the video has been recorded, and we'll take it from there, which will go via the office of the Secretary of State's office, who probably will say you have to litigate this, and if so, well.
But Howard, why?
Yeah,
Why?
it's a good question.
Yeah, exactly why.
I mean, I think that my answer to that, Swift, is because Mr. Fairman rightfully thinks that everything we do in these meetings should be done by legal process. And I agree with him 100%. Emotionally, I'm torn on this because we have batted this thing around endlessly. And to Mark's point, we have sat through meeting after meeting after meeting, and we haven't changed anything substantive. The other option I see is we call a special meeting Saturday morning and vote on it. We need 48 hours notice. So we could do it Saturday morning or Monday, or, I don't know. I hate to do that, but I also hate to openly admit and break open meeting law in the process. I don't know. It's a conundrum, and I'm not sure how to handle it.
I think it's really important that we have a special meeting. And I know it's making you wait longer. And I know you've waited a really long time. And Mark, I want to say I heard what you said. I get that. Okay, you're right. But if we do it that way, then we satisfy everything, and everybody does get a chance to look at it. And as much of a pain as it is, and I hear the emotional part of this, actually, I'm sitting here shaking because of the emotional part of this. Everybody should have a chance to read the final document. And so let's give them that chance, and then let's vote on it, and let's have it done, and then let's move forward. What about
You have a
that?
hand up.
Jamie.
Jamie Comtois, Putney. I wanted to point out that I have sat and listened for 2 years to Howard Fairman. I remember when we had.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman, ad hominem argument. Robert's Rules of Order.
I didn't make any comments to Howard.
Hang on, Jamie.
She is not allowed to attack me by name. The matter, not the member, is the subject of debate. Robert's Rules of Order, and certainly if that's not in your rules of procedure, it is in the conduct of every meeting. As soon as she mentions my name, she is out of order.
On the assumption that she was attacking you, you would be correct. I don't know what she's going to say. Jamie, I would just caution you that Mr. Fairman is definitely correct in this. It is not appropriate for you to disparage other attendants at a meeting if that was your intention.
Thank you for leaving the question open about what my intention was as I was interrupted. So I wanted to point out that I have, at first I thought that the commitment to open meeting law was one of pure process. And I have witnessed it be disproportionately utilized as a way to interrupt the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so I want to just point out that as somebody who has worked with others in our community to get us to continue this work as you have, to address how systemic racism continues to function in society, that people can use the law to actually become, to stop movement forward. And I have witnessed what appears to be a filibuster attempt. So it's very interesting to me to see how it's used at meeting after meeting now for 2 years. So I'll just point out that this is an example of how this kind of privilege is used.
I get your point, Jamie. I also, having openly admitted on recording that we would be breaking open meeting law, I don't know what choice that leaves me or us with. It's my fault this only went out today. So that falls squarely on my shoulders, and I apologize. I think probably a special meeting is
I think so.
the
I would agree
best
with
way
you.
to
Can I
I would agree with you,
recommend
Josh.
Yeah.
if we can just do it in 2 days?
Yeah.
And then, because I'd rather do that than have litigation.
There's no question about
Yep.
that, no, and I know that,
And
I get Jamie, your
apologize to
point.
both of you because of
Elena, go ahead. You're on mute, Elena.
Oh, no, you're on mute.
Yes, I also have tried to follow this with a great concern, and I think that as my rights maybe have not been exactly followed, then I feel it's time to have civil disobedience, and let's pass it.
That's what, I mean,
I didn't hear
because
what
we're
you said.
consequence for the town.
What was that?
What are the significant consequences for the town?
That
What
it-
are the legal consequences of
That-
passing it?
that there could be litigation related to it, and it could be expensive.
right.
And the expense of doing that would be greater than 2 days. Wait,
Exactly.
period. It's really that
Right.
simple.
It is.
I mean, and I can't value the 2 day, I don't know.
I'm
But-
not suggesting it, I'm curious.
And I think also, we're elected officials, so we're not civilians. So civil disobedience doesn't really fall in our purview. And I get the sentiment, and I agree with you, and I think we all understand. But 2 days, and I think that what I'm hearing from the three of us would be that if we're willing to wait 2 days, we are making, and I don't want to overemphasize this at all, but we would be committing to having a special meeting as opposed to waiting 2 weeks in order to get it done in 2 days. And I'm happy to do that if we can make that happen.
I will not be in town on Friday, I will tell you that, so.
That's when we're gonna do it.
I'm sorry.
We can't do it on Friday because we don't have 48. Oh, special meeting, we can perform 24.
Can we do it Monday? I can do it Monday.
That's an emergency meeting.
I can
So
do it Monday. I'm going to Maine, I'm getting 3 days finally. and I'm
we can
leaving
do it
Friday.
with 2 people, actually.
There you go,
Right.
okay.
That's true.
I guess I wanna say and I'm gonna cry, just as a warning.
I want to say in this piece of civil disobedience, I would like to sit here for 2 hours and just do a filibuster in the way that I witness what I sometimes see in these meetings of sidetracking and detailed oriented and of moments of what I see, sometimes moments that I witness in my own personal experience of some moments that seem unnecessary to my brain, that don't necessarily make sense to my brain and put wrenches in things, and my brain doesn't comprehend them, and I get very confused, and it seems like things go on and on and on in ways that don't seem required to, when someone else's brain, they do seem required. And so my brain in this moment is like, okay, well, I'm gonna sit here and just make public comment, and I'm gonna sit here and open meeting. I'm not going to do that to you because that seems unkind. But it just, in this moment, feels like I'm not going to block that. Great, we'll do it in 2 days. You'll pass it. We'll move on. Putney will have this committee. I hear your commitment. Let's go. But when I witness what it seems like one person consistently blocking not just equity and inclusion, but other moments and other things in this town for the detailed orientedness of supposedly for these detailed pieces of democracy it feels like it's counterproductive. And I guess I'm directly saying that, Howard, I would request that you, I don't know how to say it without a critique. I'm not saying it's a critique.
Hold it, ad hominem, you can't do it.
So it's not an attack.
It doesn't matter, you can't mention another person by name in a meeting.
I would ask that the behaviors of such specific detail-oriented these detail-oriented things that are seen as being productive happen in a different way, that we can get through and have more productive work that's helpful for our town, that's more efficient, with more respect for everyone's time, because it just feels inefficient and not respectful for everyone, for all of the issues, not just equity and inclusion, but for all of it. Like, and I've only been involved in this town stuff for about a year, and it's just like, it makes me want to cry, not just for equity. It makes it like all the times where I've rolled my eyes over this Zoom screen, and I'm really not wanting to judge and really not wanting to critique, but the pieces of like, it's challenging for me in my brain, and I'm not judging the way anyone else's brains work, but I really want to just honor, especially with my commitment to equity and inclusion, the long drawn out processes and the ways where I've seen that doesn't necessarily need to happen. And I know that's my own perspective, but I want to share that, and thank you for that. Sorry, the emotion.
No.
Thank you for all the work.
Thank you.
Yeah, no. and
Thank you.
I also want to say that detail-oriented adherence to the law is what allows democracy to occur.
Right.
And so that's the challenge for us, is to allow for those discussions about the legitimacy and the legal prospect to unfold in the way they unfold. If we don't do that, then we're not a democracy.
Right.
So, and I'm not arguing for doing that all the time, because it's frustrating and it's painful, and I've been doing this for 15 years now, and it's frustrating and painful. But it's really the democracy, and I know you're not arguing against that.
Absolutely,
so
and I believe there's a way to do it differently with respect for each other's time and respect for the issues at hand. Because I think that with the ways that some individuals have done it, there's a different way to do it, where we can honor each other's time and honor the issues at hand.
And
I agree with you, Swift, and that's one of the reasons why I started to read our procedure last week. We do have a very specific piece on public commentary, and the way that it's written, we are allowed to shut it down. We are allowed to provide a certain amount of time for discussion. We don't need to call on the same person. We don't have to recognize the same person until everyone else has spoken, and we can shut it down. And I don't want to do that myself, but it has gotten to the point where these meetings have gotten unwieldy, and there have been conversations between only two individuals, with everybody else being invisible, including myself. So I agree.
Mr. Chairman.
Mark, you wanted to make a comment.
I think just repeating from before, so we're at another meeting, and is it Friday? So we'll be back.
Thank you.
We'll connect.
Thank you.
Thank you for your patience.
This is what community work is, and
Thank you.
Like I said, we're not gonna go anywhere. I believe that we're all in this together. We definitely were looking forward to a vote today. Some of us are a little, we're emotional because there's a lot of work we put in, and a lot of conversations, a lot of meetings. But respectfully, I really look forward to Friday being more positive and everyone being on the same page. Hopefully everyone's information gets out on time so that the community gets the chance to look at it, so that we can move over. This is not just about us, it's about all of us together. So I know tensions are high right now, emotions are high right now, but it's all about moving forward, and that's what we want to do. So Friday is the day that we have to receive the vote, and Friday's the day. But I hope that on Friday, it doesn't end the way that today did.
I think it has to be Saturday in order for us to warn it
All right.
appropriately.
Saturday. 48 hours.
Saturday it is.
Yeah,
48.
Saturday time.
48 hours, and we can't.
And if you guys,
Can
sorry, if
we
you
announce
guys
it now?
make sure,
Can we basically warn it now in the meeting?
Well, it has to be
You
posted.
have to post it.
Sorry, what?
What?
Yes,
She's
you're
right.
right.
You
We
should
do.
vote that. and
It's
then move
for,
on.
well, we're still in discussion,
Oh,
so,
I see.
but yes.
Sorry.
Mr. Fairman.
Mr. Chairman, because we are in a public meeting and obviously I was the topic of recent discussion, I say publicly and categorically, I offer and shall never offer any excuse for any of my interventions in the public arena, because I'm a veteran of the public arena, and no matter what you do in the arena, you will please some people, you will displease other people, and most people will be indifferent. So when I enter the arena knowing this, and yes, some people are displeased with certain things that I have done, including, it appears, an elected member of our select board, which is fine. But as you have correctly stated, and I thank you for doing so, that the nature of democracy is dissent. Because if we have consensus, we don't need democracy. And that means some people are going to say things that other people don't like, but are that they are perfectly free to say them, to make suggestions that other people disagree with, and to intervene in a matter because of one's own personality. Other people would not intervene in that matter. And so secondly, I offer no apology whatsoever for being myself. Now, if anyone at any time feels that I have crossed a line in terms of law or in terms of general guidelines of human behavior, please let me know, because I certainly do not intend to do that. But as far as participating in a select board meeting, I have the right to do so, I do so, and I shall continue doing so, and I shall offer no excuse whatsoever for being me.
Right, Ann has accurately pointed out that we have a motion on the table. We're gonna table
it, yeah.
that
Exactly.
motion
Right.
until, so we all agree.
Absolutely.
We're
Yep.
comfortable tabling it for, I mean, it'll be by the time it's warned in the morning.
Right.
And
24.
Saturday, you're available, we can
Whenever,
meet
you know,
sometime. I mean, I don't, we can figure out how to not have to tie up too much of your time if you.
It's okay, because, it's not water aerobics on Saturday, so.
No.
Darn, I missed it. No, I'll be available. We'll
Okay.
make sure the
We'll
document
facilitate that.
is on the website and,
Good. Thank you. So this document as amended, so I guess I would ask now just one question. Where I suggested we end it at Putney Residence, do we want to maintain it as that?
Since we're meeting on Saturday anyway, let's just take that paragraph out and put it right into a policy.
Except I think the rest of it, because I think this is applicable.
Either we include the
only
whole
to this
thing or we
committee.
take it all out and change it and make it a policy for
Well,
everything, is
right,
what you're
but-
saying. Is that right?
I was saying that we can take
Everything
this
beyond here.
beyond here and put it in a
Right.
different policy. on
Because this
Saturday.
is specific to the membership of this committee, so that would.
As long as we have the other policy, right, yep,
We'll just do two birds.
great. Okay,
And you're not gonna be here, so you agree with
I
that, right?
can't, I haven't had
Yeah,
days off
no,
this
but you're
whole summer.
But you're
But
good,
you're
but
3
you're good
days
with
off.
that concept.
But you're comfortable with that.
As long as we have the other,
As long
we
as
have
you
the
have
rest of
it.
it in another policy for all committees.
Okay.
Sounds good.
So we want 2 agenda items.
And just, I wondered if you could set the time as well, so people can come.
I
I don't even know where we're having it yet.
But
Here?
maybe in the morning,
Or 10, yeah, 9 or 10.
9 or 10. 10's better for me.
10, why don't we call it 10 on Saturday? I think
Yeah.
I can do that. I don't have my calendar either, but I think that's
Will
fine.
somebody else draw up these changes, or are we
Yeah.
gonna do it?
Yeah, no, we're good.
Because I'll get them right on the website in the morning.
Okay.
Yeah, because you don't have the document yet.
Okay, thank you all. Okay, so Energy Committee appointment. We have a letter of interest from Val.
Thank you.
Night, you guys. See you soon.
Good night.
Val was here, they may have fallen asleep.
What time is it?
They might not be alone.
10 o'clock, what is it?
Oh, boy.
Okay, so, I mean, we have
can't find it.
we have it, I see the, thank you, yes. Dear Eileen, I would like to join the Putney Energy Committee. Please forward this letter to the select board with your recommendation for the consideration. Val.
Got it.
I'm assuming that this appointment is welcomed by the Energy Committee?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
That's great.
Okay, so I might suggest that you recuse yourself.
Right.
for-
Or abstain.
Yeah, exactly. So this is Val Chute, who I believe, Val, I don't know whether if you're awake, you want to make a comment, but I believe Val is 14 and a student at
Will be a student at
FEU.
Putney School, actually.
Oh, at Putney School next
Incoming
year?
freshman, yeah.
Okay, good. And
Val, are you there? I don't think so. Okay.
but has an interest in the Energy Committee and in interest issues in general. All right.
Would like to join town government in some capacity too.
Sounds good. So I will make a motion that we approve Val Chute as a member of the Putney Energy Committee.
And I'll second that.
Okay. So it has been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? If there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
And
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to say that this is an excellent idea, that we appoint people who are not yet old enough to vote to town committees, because it is an introduction to democracy as it really is.
yes,
And they have valuable contributions to make.
absolutely.
And also because we have trouble getting members of committees, this opens the field considerably, because I would guess, well, I have no way of being certain, but I would guess that your son, I believe.
My kid goes by they, them pronouns.
Okay, fine. Your kid then may not be unique in Putney in being interested in fulfilling such a role.
No, I don't think, I think that that's true, and I've been trying to encourage Val and other younger people to spread the word that if you're interested in a subject, definitely reach out.
I think on a personal note for myself, had I been more involved as a kid, remember as a child at Putney Central, we went to town meeting, but that ended somewhere in 5th or 6th grade. We all had to attend for a while. Had I been involved in a committee when I was younger, I wouldn't have ended up here at 60 without a clue.
Or had you been exposed to enough of it, you might not end up here at all.
I might have moved to a different town.
Could have gone the other way.
But the point is, your point's well taken, and I think this is great. I think it's really, really good idea, and I hope there's more young people who want to get involved.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Yep.
Now responding to you, Mr. Babbitt, similarly, I grew up in a politically involved family, and so I guess whatever anyone approves or disapproves in me is my parents' fault. Although I do take full responsibility.
at a certain point, you have to let them off the hook, but yeah.
That's right. Especially as in my case, of course, they're long gone.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Okay, so
Other business?
thank you, Val, for your willingness, and congratulations on your appointment as perhaps one of the youngest members of Putney Committee.
Do some research on that.
Yeah. And do we have any other business? I don't think so. Okay. I would like us to have a very brief executive session. It will be very, very brief.
Okay.
And it is related to VSA 313-1 appointment of an official.
Is that a motion?
So I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Well, we count.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay.